この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。Alrighty, welcome everyone, and good morning. I am Teeaboo, and I am here. I almost forgot my own name. Fuck. And I am here for Mushoku TENsei episode 10. It is early in the morning. It is 9:15, and I'm going to get started on the comment spotlight, and I'm probably going to record this video over the course of the day. Like, there will be some breaks here, and I'll edit it all together eventually, but I'm going to record this over the course of the day and figure things out as I figure them out and come to do this as I wake up. Haven't uploaded episode 9 yet. Episode 9 is a clusterfuck of a long discussion, so that's, it'll go up when it goes up, and that'll be interesting. And there's a lot more to talk about now from episode 9 than there was before to talk about during episode 9, and episode 9 ended up being 4 hours, so we need to not do that again. And so I'm gonna do this differently, and I'm gonna cut a lot of stuff out. I'm gonna make some pretty straightforward, boundaries on the discussion. First thing first, there's a lot of really fascinating and interesting discussion around, sexual deviancy. I'll just use that blanket term. We know what we're talking about, okay? I'm not in a mental state to address that today. I'm just not. And moreover, as you'll see in the comments there, I've responded to a lot of them with, I don't have the information to really be able to judge this at the moment, and that still remains true because I have been busy and I have not put in the time and effort to go and research the thing and come to a place where I can speak with any level of authority about the situation. So I'm going to gloss over a lot of that stuff in the comments. Highly recommend you go and read other people's perspectives on it. I think it's fascinating. There's a lot of stuff that expands out my viewpoint on and what I've said about it. And it's proof to me that I'm doing the right thing. And I mean that in the most serious sense. It is that I took a gamble when I made that Mushoku TENsei video. And a couple of these videos that I've made in the last weeks, I took a gamble. And the gamble was being honest, even if it's embarrassing, or opens the door for other people to call you names, or opens the door for other people to dismiss you, or whatever. Being honest is worth it. Because once you're honest, other people are inspired to be honest as well. And that is the most powerful lesson that I have learned from the last few days and the last few weeks of recording videos and trying to be as honest as I can. And inviting honesty in turn is that it works. Is that it actually works, is that when you are actually straightforward with people and you tell them some of your more vulnerable secrets, it's a relief. It's a relief because they look at you and they go, oh my god, it's possible to exist in this world without being a complete liar. And what a relief that is, because being a liar is absolutely brutal. Anyway, that's sort of neither here nor there. Let me jump off into this discussion with a comment from Ngak, which is the first one that really jumped out at me. It's down in here a little bit. Where are you? Fuck. Ngak with the little cute Kirby writes, I've pretty much only watched your Mushoku TENsei videos and some Punpun, but I've been enjoying when you open the video talking about your day. It has helped frame your experience with the show, which I think was your intention unless I'm reading too much into a segue. You might say you touched on off-topic things, but I think sometimes something would feel incomplete if you completely omitted them. But I'd like to take this opportunity to try and say something poetic, so I will say that I guess people and stories have a two-way street relationship of change. People write stories, and stories write people, would be how I'd put it. That's a lesson that's part and parcel to... little duck girl dancing with the crow girl, and there are boys, and it's Princess Tutu. Princess Tutu, hyper-allegorical story about stories it's all about a storybook world where stories are stories and things are fucking complicated, weird show that should not be as childish as it is. But yeah, people and stories have a two-way street relationship of change. You are, by your nature, a writer of stories. You are writing your own story, and you're living in a story as far as you see it, as far as I see you seeing it. I think you live in a story more than you live in a reality. So write a good story. Be a good protagonist. When you watch a show and you feel like, gosh, I wish that the hero would just... Well, apply that to yourself. Gosh, I wish the hero would just get off his ass and do the thing. Stop whining about it. How many shonen protagonists go through 5 episodes and be like, I want to be Hokage, but I don't want to do the work. It's like, come on, man. Fuck. It's so easy. Then you look at yourself and you're like, I want to be rich and famous, but I don't want to work. It's like classic Ronnie Coleman.
Everybody want to be a bodybuilder, but don't nobody want to lift no heavy ass weight.
That's a line that is stuck inside my fucking core, deep inside me. Everybody want to be a bodybuilder. Ain't nobody want to lift no heavy ass weight. Applies to everything, you know. Stories and people and stories. Super good stuff there. So the reason I put this at the beginning was because it is the beginning of the video, and it's the beginning of my day, and I should talk about my day. Today's interesting. This is the first hard day that I've had in a couple weeks. It's 9:20 a.m., which is way earlier, by the way, than I am normally anywhere near lucid. I've been up since like 7:30. I tried to stay in bed a little bit, but I couldn't. So I got up and I went outside and literally, like, first I just could not stay awake alive, so I just laid out directly in sunlight. Luckily, there was a place on the couch outside where there's sunlight hitting, so I just lay there and like, and then about 10 minutes later, I found myself just sitting up. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I just found myself sitting up and like going through YouTube comments and stuff on the phone, and like going through the comments on this. I'm like, oh wait, I'm mostly awake. I need to go stand out in the sunlight. So then I went and I stood out in the sunlight and I stared at the blue sky, and it's like, I'm literally holding my eyes open to stare at the blue. Don't stare at the sun, by the way. That's not the goal here. The goal is to get sunlight into your eyes, not to stare at the sun. It also helps that it's warm and nice and fun and it's pretty, but mostly it's to get fucking blue light into your eyes. Oh, actually, full spectrum sunlight into your eyes, and then it wakes you up. It's magical. Had my electrolyte beverage, which is a life changer. I mean, really, Jesus, some crazy shit. How dehydrated we get while we're asleep it boggles my brain, and I always knew it, and a part of my schedule has always been wake up, chug water, wake up, chug water, wake up, chug water. It's one of the first like really good things that I instituted for myself in terms of a habit. Oh yeah. I'm also reading. I'm only 20 pages in, but I purchased and I'm reading Atomic Habits. This is on the bestseller list as a, hey, if you wanna do little useful things, this is how you instill a bunch of useful things into your life and make them happen. It's like, all right, I probably should read this book. Fuck. After I bought the book, I was looking at it for a while, like, God damn it. And really, I was looking at the book with trepidation. I found it really interesting, and I had to step back from myself and watch myself do this. I was looking at the book. I put it on this shelf. I built this little bookshelf thing, because I need so much more storage space. I realized that my room is a mess, in part because I'm messy, but also in part because I literally don't have places to put the things that I have. And I've always been reluctant to purchase bookshelves and shit. I don't know why. It's a stupid neuroses, I guess. I've always been reluctant to purchase stuff like that, or poor, because not having money to purchase bookshelves is a pretty good reason to not purchase bookshelves, I think. So I want to purchase some bookshelves, and I've got this little shelf, and I've got a little, you might notice that all the paper pals are gone, and that's sad. I don't want to lose them. They're important to me. I can see them right now. They're in a little triangle shelf. In fact, I'll just take a picture. I can do this. You can see where I'm at. I'm right here. I'm going to take a quick picture. So I can just show you. So there's a bookshelf in the, oh god. There's a bookshelf in the corner, which you can see where all the paper pals and stuff are. And you can see that's my dog. There, the picture of her on my computer, which is right there. And then there's the bookshelf with books on it. And I put all my paper pals up there. And it freed up like 8 cubic feet of room space where I just had shit sitting that I didn't know what to do with. Fucking shelving. Needed to buy shelving years ago. I'm probably gonna find a book on organization eventually. I don't know that I want to go like Marie Kondo method. Maybe because I've had the well there poison, but it doesn't matter. The important point is that I've been organizing stuff. But I was looking at this Atomic Habits book with the distinct knowledge that the information in this book will force me to change. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I pick this, if I leave this book on the shelf, I never have to do anything and I get to stay right where I'm at. But if I read this book, it will become, I know from the outset, that it will become apparent to me that my life is something that I am capable of changing. And in that appearance, in that moment of realizing that I can change my life, I will realize that I have a duty to. And that duty is to improve. And improvement is hard. And so if I read the book, I'll have to do the hard thing. It might make my life a million times better, but I'm going to have to do the hard thing. And so I sat there looking at the book like, maybe I don't want to read this. Maybe I don't want to read this. Maybe this is going to be a dark mirror, man. Maybe this is going to show me all the things about myself that I really don't like. You know? Because if this book does what it says it will, and it seems to be heading in that direction after the first 20 pages, it's going to be like, yeah, so any of those things you like or don't, you want to do or don't want to do, you can make that happen over incremental time using the proper methods and psychologically tricking yourself into forming a habit that will become a part of you forever. So if you don't like a thing about yourself, you can fix it. And how much easier it is to sit here and go, well, that's just the way I am, man. I'm just disorganized, you know? And I've said that many times, and I do believe it. Deep down inside, I believe it. I am a disorganized person. But if this book tells me that there's a chance that I could become a not disorganized person, and I am recognizing that being disorganized is one of the biggest stumbling blocks in my overall happiness and existence and stuff, I'm gonna have to organize my shit, and I'm gonna have to stay that way. No, it's hard. So that's the first set of things that's going on in my life. Today was a difficult day. Over the last 2 weeks, every day has been pretty easy. I've been wanting to get up. But today, there was inertia. I didn't want to get out of bed at all. I wanted to stay. And so, the really, really hyper rush that I've had over the last couple of weeks of information and thought and processing and ideas and stuff is slowing down. That's a scary state because you want to be in that forever. But you really don't, because that state that I've been in for the last couple of days has been near manic. And that's okay. I understand that. It's fine. It's the way it is. A lot of people in the Discord and elsewhere were like, hey man, slow down. You don't want to burn out. And it's like, no. You don't understand. This isn't burnout. This isn't anything like that. This isn't a normal situation. This is me being in a slightly manic state, and I need to get the absolute most out of it that I possibly can. I want this to burn out because I don't want to live like this forever. But also, I want this to burn out so that I can reincorporate and figure it out. And I want to use as much of it as I can because it's not going to last forever. And I don't want to do the things that would potentially, riskily allow the reintroduction of this state. I want to create a steady state human, which is me as a steady state human with a bunch of the things incorporated and moving in the right direction. I don't want to introduce more psychedelics literally into my system and cause damage or sway myself from what I think is a pretty close to proper path. I don't want to fuck with that. Not even a little bit. So it's an inevitability that it will fade, and it's sad to watch it go for me because it's a taste of magic, I think. It's a taste of open eyes and a true heart. And there's a part of me that wants desperately to hold on to that as hard as I can, and it's only the lessons of anime that sort of gripping too tightly onto what you have is the way to prevent any change and to create stagnation. So I'm just going with the flow and letting it happen. And while this feels sad, it also feels joyous because it marks a return to a bit of stability inside me. I mean, a bit of the ability to focus, a bit of the ability to buckle down a little bit and be a little bit less chaotic and all over the place. And I'll use this as an opportunity to address a bunch of comments that I think are super valid in some ways, albeit maybe I find them hard to look at because they are critical of me and critical of my work and critical of this video, the last video. And I think that 4-hour video on Mushoku TENsei is some of my best work ever, and I recognize that other people are not going to see it that way, and that's fine. The idea that a perspective that I've gathered from having a literally altered mind and attempting to view things through these really difficult metaphorical, allegorical, shadows on the wall type lenses is that's not going to resonate with a lot of people. But some people it will resonate with. And most importantly, it'll resonate with me. And I think it's actually true. But I recognize that the means or the mode of communication, the mode of speech that I was in is not the most conducive to comprehension or logic, perhaps, or perhaps expression of information, and that's fine. That makes sense. I was in a different place, I was not a normal human being. Still, I'm not a normal human being. Never will be. But I was not a normal human being. It makes it hard to communicate with normal human beings, and that's recognizable to me. I bought 2 of these. These are from Hario, is the company. They're a Japanese glass company. And these are 1 liter cold brew tea makers. I bought 2 of them. and this one is filled up with Moroccan mint and Hibi Uji Gyokuro, which is a dark shade green grown, so with some peppermint and stuff. And you just throw some leaves in there. It's got a filter in the top that you can see. You just throw some leaves in there and let it sit in the fridge overnight and get yourself some delicious cold brew. And it's fucking lovely. They're really nice. Yeah, they were $20 each. Not bad at all. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. And far easier than actually like brewing tea. So you don't have to worry about the temperature and all that jazz. So that's quite nice. I'll mention my sleep cycle has been changing. It's weird. I read a long time ago, and this has been happening as I've been exposing myself to more sunlight in the early morning. And just sort of letting myself fall asleep when I want to. The last few days, I've passed out at like 7:30 to 8 p.m. This didn't happen last night, and that's probably why today was so tiring. But I've passed out at like 7:30 to 8 p.m., which is nuts. And then what happens is I pass out right around sunset, a little bit after sunset, fall the fuck asleep, have great sleep, wake up at around 2:30 to 4 a.m., somewhere in there, and I'm just awake and lucid and up. And during that period, for about an hour, usually a little bit less, I'm awake and lucid and up, and then I start getting sleepy again, and then I crash out again. And I remembered reading about this. I don't know. Let me see. Waking hour, Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, biphasic sleep. Yeah, we get all these notes and stuff from like Dickens and other records. Like Dickens in Barnaby Rudge writes, he knew this even in the horror with which he started from his first sleep and threw up the window to dispel it by the presence of some object beyond the room which had not been, as it were, the witness of his dream. The idea of the first sleep or having a biphasic sleep is really interesting. When in the 90s, Thomas Ware did a lab experiment and exposed people to a shorter period of light and a longer period of darkness for a period of time. They started to have a distinct biphasic sleep pattern where the people would sleep for about 4 hours, wake up for 1 to 2 hours, and then fall asleep for another 4-ish hours, which means that to some extent, there's some kind of natural biological basis for having this like weird split cycle going on. Now, to be clear, I'm not setting an alarm. I'm not doing anything to myself. I'm just going to bed when I feel sleepy and waking up with the sun, essentially. I got sunlight that streams into my eyes when the sun comes up, and I immediately, as soon as I wake up, I go outside and I stand in the sunlight. And it's changed my sleep cycle completely. Completely. And I've been waking up in the middle of the night, lucid for like an hour, and then passing back out. And with immensely more energy when I do so. Not trying to make this happen, just letting my body go. Weird. Really, really quite weird. For example, it was 2 nights ago that I built this bookshelf. It was like 7:30. I was gonna go watch something with some friends, and I came into my room for a second. I just undid the tape on the box and pulled out the instructions for the bookshelf. You know, like IKEA style. Put this here. Ding, ding, ding. It's got like 10 pieces. It's not that complicated. And I looked at it and I couldn't parse it. I just looked at it. I was like, Bleh. I realized I'm fucking tired. Okay, so I went and I told my friends, hey, I'm going to bed. Sorry, not gonna watch the thing with you. Must go to sleep. Went, passed the fuck out. Woke up at 2:30 a.m. or something. Woke up completely lucid, put together the entire bookshelf, put it on the shelf, put my books on it. Was like, did that. That was fun. Crashed back to sleep. Woke up in the morning and recorded Promare. Puromea. Whatever. Weird. Some weird stuff. So that's what's going on mostly in terms of the mechanics of my life. Yeah. Yesterday, I did something tangible that was really fun. I spent a lot of the day re-rendering Promare because there were some problems with the editing and render job that I had done the day before. And while that was rendering, which just takes hours, where I can't use my computer, because if you use your computer, it fucks with the render job, I went and I installed a new faucet, because our faucet in our kitchen sink has been trash for the entire time that I've been here. It's just a faucet. It doesn't have a pull-out or a sprayer thing. It's just kind of garbage, and you can't really clean the sink because there's no pull-out sprayer and stuff. So I bought a moderately cheap Chinese knockoff faucet, and I installed the fucking thing. And 2 things happened. One was we have a good faucet now, which is fucking sick. But the more important thing, and you know, everybody looked at me and they were like, dude, you know that we're renting this house. Like, why would you buy a faucet? It's not ours. You don't get to like that's not yours now. You've just lost that money. And it's like, wow, okay, I've lost that money, and now I have a faucet. I think I've gained something. Now the woman who cooks in this kitchen more frequently than I do can clean her damn sink and is going to be less pissed in general because she's got a good faucet and her sink works and her kitchen is proper. Like, that's worth it to me. I'm done. Cost defrayed, cost allowed. I don't care. But I also got something really powerful out of it, and that is, I grew up, my dad's a contractor, essentially, and I've changed faucets. I've put them in, I've taken them out, I've done the plumbing of the drain system underneath, I've taken off the valves for faucets and put in new valves, like the actual hard stuff that's real plumbing as well, soldering or copper or steel pipe, and I've done all those things. But it's been a long time, and there was a part of me once that faucet came in, I was like, I wonder if I can actually do this. I really hope I don't fuck it up. Really hope I don't fuck this faucet up, because gosh, how embarrassing would that be if I came into this house and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna change the faucet. I'm gonna do a cool thing, and then there's water spraying everywhere and the whole countertop explodes. You come up with this idea of what would happen if everything went wrong. It's a scary idea. What if I'm not capable? So I got onto the faucet and I started doing it. I was like, oh, this is easy as hell. I remember exactly how this works, and I understand how faucets work. And suddenly this whole realm of possibility opens up to me. This whole realm of things that were in the, I wonder if maybe I can really take care of a house that has problems like this, went from, no, I don't think I can, to, yeah, of course I can. And so it's like, I am now confident in my ability to take care of any basic plumbing within the house. That's like, what a change in terms of, I don't know if I can even express to you how much that changes in terms of like anxiety and competence and confidence, to be able to put that on my belt and be like, yeah, if something goes wrong in this house, I think I'm capable of dealing with it solo. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Like, people get really scared of faucets and toilets and electricity and stuff, of the fundamentals of the world that we live in. But that's like being somebody who lives in the woods and not knowing how to make a fire. And it's like, ooh, fire's scary. Yeah, until you master fire, man. And suddenly you have power over yourself and your space. It was a powerful moment for me. A really cool moment for me. Stupid thing, just finishing putting in a faucet, but it worked for me. And now the faucet works for everybody. And so it's like, I proved to myself that I am capable, and also improved the lives of everyone who lives here, including myself. Worth it. In every sense, worth it. And it's not like I paid for a $300, Delta or Moen quality super mega faucet. I just wanted something that would work. And it works. Super cool. Okay, let's turn over to comments spotlight. I'm going to go through these from like top down. If I figure that there's a better editing way to edit them together, then I'll do that. But we'll start us off with one Captain Wolfbane. Captain Wolfbane writes, I was prepared to hard disagree with you on all lessons coming from stories, but after you explained your position, I think I agree. I do disagree on stories not being able to change people, and this, to be clear, I think is a misinterpretation between me and Captain Wolfbane. I think stories can change people. When I expressed the idea about stories not being able to change people, that was as part of the conversation that I had with Isfa on the Discord, and that was Isfa's position, not mine. I believe that stories absolutely change people all the time. Fundamentally, I am constructed of stories. My life is stories. I view the world through stories. I exist as a story. Like, stories. So I think we agree, and I commented as much, and I got a lot of upvotes, so I think people and you understand that we agree, so good. I'll still read the comment, though, because it's good, even though you're arguing a point that I believe in. That's still good. Great. I do disagree on stories not being able to change people, even on a most base level. Any story that makes you feel any amount of any emotion or sticks in your mind has already changed you. Yourself, in my mind at least, is the culmination of your experiences, your emotions, and your reaction to stimulus. So even affecting one of those, experiences in this case, has changed you. After watching Mushoku TENsei or anything else, you are not the same person as before, no matter your position, no matter your like or dislike of it, whether you believe it or not, you are different. I absolutely agree. Entirely. Even when you say any story that makes you feel any amount of emotion or sticks in your mind, I think even if they don't. In fact, there's been proof around advertising, and I'd have to look up the specifics of this, but it's the people who believe themselves to be the most effectively guarded against advertising are the ones upon whom advertising works most effectively. the people who go, oh, advertising doesn't get me, I ignore it, I don't pay attention, they're the ones who are most susceptible. That's fucking interesting, isn't it? Because if you convince yourself that you are not susceptible to a thing, you stop being on guard. If you are, I am always susceptible to stories, advertisement, and information, then you start being careful about what you let into your head. And you start parsing it carefully, right? When you see the supermodel on the car in the bikini selling you Bud Light, you start to go, what's going on there? Oh, they're associating all the things I want, fame, sex, I'm male, so sex, with a product that I don't want. Interesting that they're doing that. Or when you start watching Super Bowl commercials and you're like, haha, funny Gecko did a funny. Well, you remember that shit, and now you remember Geico forever. It's getting inside your brain. Or the dumb Doritos ads. Doritos is in your brain now, and you're like, haha, it was just a funny joke. It didn't affect me or make me want to buy Doritos. No, but it makes you recognize Doritos, and that's all that matters. It's crazy shit. It's crazy how much advertising will affect you. So why not stories? Huh? Why not stories? Why not a compelling narrative that convinces you that a certain mode of being is the way to be? You watch Osama Ranking and you don't get changed a little bit by Osama Ranking, by watching Boji and Kage like interact as soulful, direct individuals and like fight for what is right and stuff, and you don't get anything from that. Bullshit. Absolutely bullshit. Those shows, those stories change you 100%. Even if they're what I have called garbage. And we'll get to that on a different comment. But I've got a couple of responses that I responded to Captain Wolfbane. First was, I believe we fully agree. I think we are actually not in conflict here. I argue quite vehemently throughout the video that stories can and do change us, and you seem to be arguing the same thing. So let me know if I'm wrong, Captain Wolf, but I think we're on the same page. And the second one that I wrote down, just because I think it is relevant, is the famous quote from Heraclitus. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. The world is always ever changing, and so are you. And the idea is that when Captain Wolfbane writes yourself, in my mind at least, is the culmination of your experiences, your emotions, and your reaction to stimulus. That's you changing. You're changing, but also the world is changing around you. And so your self changes with every viewing of a story. And if you go and you view a story again, you're not viewing it from the same position at all. You can set up everything to be the exact same experience, and it's not the same because you aren't. The story hasn't changed. But you have. Awesome. Badford writes, I'd like to add on to Eris overcoming her prejudice and fear. I think it's great that what snaps her out of it is anger and indignation. She is so scared that she's shaking and can't even get her own name out properly, but as soon as this terrifying monstrous presence misinterprets her and gets her name wrong, she stamps the ground and her Tsune roars to life, completely overwhelming her fear for a moment. Eris is true to the end. Yeah, I actually don't have much to say about this one. I think it's really quite funny that the anger and indignation is precisely what snaps her out of it, and it's not any revelation or anything. It's an emotional snap. And I think that tracks. When you're in one emotional state, it's really hard to snap out of it. So that's really cool. QB writes, I was so engrossed listening while I was walking around the park that I did like 5 additional laps. Sick, let's go. Thanks for the thoughts, T, and thanks for motivating me to improve my own health. Nothing but respect for you, man. Keep it up. Keep it up. Do something for you sometimes, man. Hurt a little bit now so you don't hurt forever. Because you got years and years on this earth, and if you just look around at people who are older than you, a lot of them are not having a good time. And you can immediately start to discover why they're not having a good time. And the answer is always that they wish they had treated their body better, and that they wish they had eaten better, and they wish they had walked around the park 5 additional times every couple days. So keep that shit up, QB, and then you'll be able to keep it up for decades longer than most of your peers. Because right now I'm 28 and I'm starting to see my peers fall apart, and that's nuts because I'm getting better. Like, oh. Okay, so here's a real world instance of something interesting to me. I'm actively working to improve myself. I'm actively working to fix my schedule, to organize my shit, to put my things together, to become more intelligent, reading books to change my habits, reading things to expand my mind and my body and my abilities and my willingness to change the world and ability to change the world, and putting in sinks and putting in faucets and like trying stuff and failing at stuff and improving. And my body is getting stronger, and my mind is getting stronger, and I'm getting more confident, and I'm feeling better. And weirdly, it feels like all the systems within me are getting better. Like I feel healthier, and with the exception of this one bump, my skin is better in general, and I'm recovering faster from the gym, and I'm waking up on time, and I'm eating on a schedule that feels right, and my life is like coming together, man. It's crazy. And I see people, we got a family across the street with some kids who are not kids, but some people who are semi near my age, and they're getting destroyed. They're destroying themselves. It's kind of crazy. You can go against that flow, man. You really can. It takes work, because entropy will get your ass, and it will get mine eventually too. We all fall apart, but damn. Disturbed Gamer 667 has a great comment on the stuff that I'm not going to talk about, sexual stuff. I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I'm sorry. And that is, again, it's simply that I don't have the grounding to go into it. If I do want to talk about it at some point, I'm going to have to do so in an extraordinarily careful, specific video. I've realized that it's just such a hot, and this is a shame, because I know that the goal is to talk about these things, and I want to, but I don't feel like I'm capable of honestly and correctly speaking about this thing effectively, because all I have are misinformed opinions, and that's not good enough. And when it comes to something as important as this, I think there's probably a good reason to step the fuck back and stay careful. I will talk about some of the stuff coming off of this comment, which is that Disturbed Gamer writes, no studies that I have found, and I did read a couple of sources that you posted, have shown that an increased access to pornography has led to increased sexual crimes, and in some cases could be tentatively linked to a decrease in those crimes. I think more than tentatively, from the research that I have seen, and part of the reason that I know that I don't know anything is because I've gone and read some of the research and been like, whoa, there's shit going on that's way more complicated than I can deal with. And I mentioned in the last one, it's fucking hard to look at that research. It really hurts. It really hurts. Again, it's like looking at the Atomic Habits book. It's just terrifying that I'm going to see a reflection of myself in the untouchable, the truly evil. And that's scary, because I think there is a reflection of me in the truly evil. And I think there is a capacity within me for the truly evil. And that's a huge part of the argument that I made, is that that's within all of us. We are capable of it. But the tentative link to decrease in those crimes seems to be not tentative, seems to be direct and serious, and that's really interesting. And my response to that was, from what I've seen, and I've really just started investigating, the data seems to support your conclusions. I do wonder if you could do a study and determine whether exposure to certain types of pornography in otherwise uninterested adults could lead to increased searches for the same. And Disturbed Gamer responds, in essence, is that just a variation on Pavlov's experiment of operant conditioning? Yeah, mostly. And he says, which is to say, I absolutely believe that you can dopamine hack your brain into liking things that are wrong, even if you were neutral to them before. Though if you actively hated the thing prior to the experiment, it would probably take external rewards like drugs to make the conditioning stick, which is why I'm fine with the stuff existing. I would advise anyone not already wired that way to stay away from it. What Disturbed Gamer says about, I absolutely believe that you can dopamine hack your brain into liking things that are wrong, we all know this to be true. I forget who the author is. Let me look up the term. It comes from Mary Harrington, the reactionary feminist. You can find her on reactionaryfeminist.com. You feel whatever you feel about that. I don't give a shit. She writes some interesting stuff about porn. So the laws of pornodynamics are, the first one is the law of conservation of libido, which is really interesting. The second law of pornodynamics is the one that I'm interested in here. It is the law of FAP entropy. How does entropy coexist with the overall conservation of libido, you might ask? Well, porn is a moving force field, not a static representation of the field of sight. It's all in math stuff. But what it says is that pornographic stimuli lose their erotic charge over time for a given individual, and users of porn will over time become desensitized to erotic stimuli. You see this in two different forms. You see this in the macro and the micro. On the macro scale, you get kids who are capable of looking at Victoria's Secret catalogs and getting, absolutely demolishing their pee-pee because the girls are so hot. And then you go and you check in on the guy 10 years later, and he's watching upside down anal Asian bondage flippy whippy dippy porn, right? And it's like, whoa, what happened there? Why doesn't the Victoria's Secret lingerie models do the thing for you? And the reason is because we're wired that way. Our reward system is wired that way. If you take some heroin, it lights up your reward system, and you need more heroin to light up the reward system the same amount. Your receptors get fried. You become less capable of feeling that feeling for that person, for a particular thing. And then on the micro scale is you start out watching one thing, and then 30 minutes later, you're watching upside down Asian anal bondage flippy whippy porn because you saw a recommendation, and you and the algorithm that's providing pornography to you via whatever site you use for pornography, probably Pornhub, probably a MindGeek site. By the way, MindGeek owns almost all of pornography on the internet, and that's something to be afraid of because one corporation owns most of what goes into your sexual mind. And that's nuts. Really quite nuts. But you go and seek out more extreme things to get your rocks off, and it goes and it gives you more extreme things to try and get you to view more stuff, because that's its goal, is to get your attention more deeply involved in the thing. And you get this mutualistic spiral toward insanity. And I mean, really, look at it. How many times do you start out in a masturbatory session going for something pretty simple, and you end the session watching some crazy shit? Or you get like 20 minutes into the session or whatever, and now you're stuck and you're absolutely fucked because there's one idea that you must find, and until you find that one particular thing of like particular hair color, particular body type fucked in a particular way with a particular expression, and she'd better have, pigtails, and it's got to be on top of a building, and they got to be being sprayed down with milk, and the guy needs to be wearing a horse mask, otherwise you're just not gonna work for you anymore. And it's like, what's going on there, and then you finish to that and you go, what the fuck was I doing? How did this happen? I started off watching some nice like erotic art. I watched some nice like women going like that used to be enough. What happened? I used to be able to fully like have a great time to just the idea of the female form or the male form or whatever, right? And now it has to be the female form contorted and twisted and destroyed and whipped and chained up and choked and thrown off a building and fucked while flying off a building and skydiving while being double penetrated. It's like, what happened there? I think the answer is that your reward system continues going in that direction. So here's a question, and this is another, or not even a question, a statement. Risky things add reward. Risk adds dopamine. That's why and not for some people, but for some people it does. Taboos add dopamine. Part of the reason that kinks feel good is because they're, wrong or taboo. It's a huge part of the reason, right? Here's just a proposition. I don't know. I do not know. Loli Shota is the most taboo. And to some, perhaps the most exciting. How difficult is it if you're in that FAP entropy cycle, depending on where you're at, because if you're on Pornhub, you're not going to find yourself going down a Loli Shota hole because it doesn't really exist on that format. But if you're on a hentai, like manga site, you're going down that hole at some point. It's going to pop up in your recommendations at some point. If you do as I did for years and have stopped doing fairly recently, and just scroll through the latest English on hentai. That's what I used to do. That was my primary source of pornographic material, was to scroll through the latest on hentai, and I didn't really care what the content was. So whatever it was, I'd click on it, regardless. And remember, we had that conversation about the seeing a girl who's 300 yards away and your brain still goes, ooh, mate? So something about your brain doesn't care whether what you're doing is right or wrong. It just cares that it's stimulation. There's no morals in your dopamine circuit. They don't have them. Your dopamine circuit, your reward circuit doesn't have morals. It just has desire and fulfillment, and that's it. So when you scroll through hentai and you go through whatever's there, you find yourself looking at some crazy shit. And some of it, you click, whoa, maybe not. And some of it, you just go, I don't really care. there's stimulation here, I'll go for it. And then how much more of that sort of stimulation might you need? So I guess the question I'm asking is, or wondering is, how possible is it, and I think the answer is very, for otherwise well-adjusted, sexually normal-ish individuals to find themselves excited and excitable toward things that they are otherwise disinterested in, simply because of exposure? I think the answer is, it's quite possible and quite likely. And it makes perfect sense to me. And it tracks with a lot of my own experience. And you know what else tracks? Is that when I stopped doing it, gone. It's not in my brain anymore. It's not in my brain anymore, and neither is the fear around it. Neither is the self-hatred around it. None of it. None of it. None of it. Crazy. Really crazy. You know, I noticed something else. I mentioned this in the previous video. And this feels embarrassing because it feels like lying, but or it feels like I'm admitting a lie, but it really isn't a lie. It's that I didn't understand myself at all. I've questioned my sexuality for a long time, and I've said on this channel before that I consider myself straight, and I do, but there was something about that wasn't quite true. There was something about me that wasn't entirely straight, and isn't entirely straight, and never will be entirely straight. You know, it's like you look at the Kinsey scale and try to figure out where you were, or where you are. And I didn't understand what it was, and I put it to rest, finally. Just a couple weeks ago, I finally put it to rest. Now, to be clear, like, I've experimented in both directions. I really love women, and I love being with them. I've been with men, too, and I did not enjoy it. There's always a part of me that was like, maybe that's me. A part of me that was, more than anything, intellectually convinced that I was more bi than I am. And the truth is that I'm not. And I'm still piecing it out, but it's this multi-complicated complex that's there for me that I've finally been able to step away from and recognize. And part of that was like having that difficult conversation with my friend who is a friend, and effectively telling him, like, I'm super just guaranteed not interested in you. And moreover, not interested in guys in general, period. So it's like, what's going on there? What's going on with me? And it's this complicated thing where it's my relationship and shattered relationship with my father, and a deeply destroyed set of stuff around male affection, because my father didn't have a father, so he didn't know how to be a father in a lot of ways, and didn't understand physical affection. And so I've got this desperate need for bonding and physicality, which then is, of course, contrasted with my traumas around physicality, especially with men, which to some extent come from my experimentation with men, which was unenjoyable and traumatic. So, like, there's some layers here that are definitely things that I've caused for myself that's like, wow, I have to unpack that. But I came to the realization that in a lot of ways, my bi tendencies, as they were, or homosexual tendencies, were more masturbatory than anything. And I think had more to do with, one, filling the void of father, so literally daddy issues, which is, oh, God, fuck. But also loving myself, because I didn't love myself. And every time I would think about that possibility, and it took months in these last few months of me saying to myself, like, I don't feel like I'm gay. I don't feel like I'm bi, but I had to come to this conclusion and say to myself, it would be okay if I am. It is okay if I am. I would love myself if I am. But I had this thought. I remembered a moment sitting in the vehicle, sitting in my dad's truck, and he was incensed about something that I've forgotten. He was mad as hell about something that I've forgotten. And at some point, he turned to me and he went, "Are you fucking gay? Are you a fucking," used the F word. Are you? You gotta fucking tell me. Tell me the truth. And I was so shocked because my brain was like, no, I'm dating a girl. Like, what are you? And something in my brain went, what if I am? Because I hadn't explored it, so there was the possibility. And so I had to make this, like, hardline no to my dad. Of course not. But I hadn't answered the question fully for myself. And it seemed like I needed to. And it turns out in the end that the answer was no. I think. And I'm open to the possibility that that might change or that I'm wrong. And I find myself more open to it than I was before. But I stopped watching porn. Digital and drawn and recorded and photographic. Stopped watching it entirely. And when I feel the need for release, if you will, I do it to my own damn brain. And not once, not ever do I find myself fantasizing or imagining the same sex or myself or perversion. I think I mentioned this before, but I find myself almost in worship, which is really weird. Almost in worship of an ideal of woman that I want to seek out. And that ideal becomes stronger every time I do. And that's weird. Really weird. All of this to sort of, in a meandering and early morning way, say, first, I think you can absolutely, through operant conditioning, dopamine hack your brain to be invested in sexual material that you're not interested in. I mean, if you can be like, I don't want heroin one bit, and then somebody forcibly ejects a little bit of heroin into you, and then they do it again, and then you need heroin now. Seems reason, and you'll be like, I want my heroin, motherfucker, give it to me. Seems reasonable that something else that does produce dopamine reactions will continue to produce changes in behavior, period. Makes perfect sense to me. So, that's pretty interesting. Exotic Sayat. This is the one about garbage stories that I think is valuable. Since it's been brought up a couple of times, I don't know for sure, but I think there's a lot of value in garbage stories in media. Just anecdotally, a lot of painful times in my life, mostly physically, were not saved by insightful stories, it was helped along by entertainment. Often ecchi rom-com anime or meaningless video games with just enough mechanical engagement. The same things I like when I'm really tired and need to unwind. Media you would probably call garbage, but for me has been a much-needed distraction. While it's important to find engaging and meaningful stories as well, I wouldn't just throw out everything that isn't. Not that you have said this, it's just a soft sentiment that I feel from you. You are correct, and I'm sorry for implying otherwise, because this is definitely something that I believe and engage with throughout the course of the channel. Yashike's and Cute Girls Doing Cute Things shows and stuff, I love them. I actually do, and I think they're super valuable and calming and helpful. Sometimes escapism is a value in and of itself. Sometimes pain is such that you can't look at it right now. Sometimes the real world is just tiring and exhausting and hurtful. And sometimes just having stories to invest yourself in worlds where maybe that's not the case, where maybe things are going okay for the characters, can be a deep sigh of genuine relief. To exist somewhere else and be somewhere else and not be where you're at can be incredibly valuable. And I think that's true. I also think that there is a responsibility when making media that is just entertaining, just calming, that there should be something about it that is more than that. Like, I don't think that K-On! Is just entertaining or just simple. And I even think that a lot of those simple rom-com shows have something more poignant to them about the way that we wish that people maybe interacted. It lets us get outside of ourselves, and I think that that's extremely valuable and very, very cool. So, thank you for mentioning this, Sayat. I think I agree with you, and I do see that sentiment in myself in the way that I'm expressing it. And part of that is this sort of manic mode that I've been in, where I've been just fascinated by the most fascinating, densest stuff in media that I can possibly find. And, that comes with some pros and cons. Continuing the comment, on a more disturbing note, I agree very much with you on the point that men are very capable of assault. Yeah. For me, I grew up religious and my parents were rather overbearing, and even though I had a private space with a computer, I did not ever watch adult entertainment. I was overwhelmed by lust as a young teenager. Yeah, I've been there. To the point where I nearly considered, well, it means that you did consider it. Since the idea is here, I don't mean this is insulting in any way. When you say I nearly considered, you mean you considered. I considered trying to grope a girl in the very crowded hallway of my school just so I couldn't be identified as the one who did it. Happens all the time. People do it all the time. Japan is a pretty sexually repressed culture, and as far as I know, they have at least the most media around the concept of groping and chikan and touching people without consent on public transportation, because it fulfills this ideal, this desire, this if only, this overwhelmed by lust. I'm pretty sure I already considered your example of imagining forcing myself on a girl. I've never done anything, but just how close I came to doing so, and that I really thought about it, terrifies me a lot. And honestly, it should. And I think a lot of men look at themselves doing that and go, that wasn't me. And they turn away, and they let that be part of the shadow. And it's not a part of them until they do something and hurt somebody because they're not in control of it. And then there's no going back. Because ideating it, realizing that you terrify yourself, you can walk away, man. You can turn back. But you do it, While I think it would have been better to jerk off than come really close to doing something that I couldn't have undone, I at least have a chilling understanding of this. It seems like a lot of men just don't seem to grapple with this thought. Maybe they don't necessarily need to, though. I'm not sure. I don't believe that one bit. Not one bit. Not one bit would I believe that maybe they don't necessarily need to, in the slim exceptions of ace men. In the slim exceptions of ace men, again, lust is hunger. Lust is like hunger, man. You get hungry enough and you start thinking of taking food from the people around you. And I think lust works the same way, and it is not good. You must be aware of it, I think. Maybe there's some other way that I haven't figured out yet to be aware of and in control of your sexuality, this thing that is in some ways bigger than you. Because it is. It's wired into you, like it's part of humanity as a whole, is that you must reproduce. It's bigger than you. So you better be aware of that, because you're not going to be able to fight it effectively if you think you're in control of it. On an even more disturbing note, like you, I have jerked off to L and also S in my case, but I have also spent time looking into it, mostly as a result of doing so. I feared what this meant about me, as would make sense. And made me seriously consider at what point I needed to kill myself. Fucking terrifying. Part of why stories like Rudy's matter. Because you're not unredeemable. And this comes down to some of that definitional issue that I mentioned. That is like, specifically, pedophilia is a specific inborn mental disorder. And it is different from a bunch of other disorders and a bunch of other non-disorders that are just behaviorologies and ways of being that a lot of people immediately ascribe to that broad category. From what I've researched, which is very limited, from what I've seen, and from going and watching, it's from 2009, it's called A Place for Pedophiles, where Louis Theroux goes to speak with patients at the Coalingo Mental Hospital, where about 500 convicted sex offenders are in constant treatment, and many of them have been spent a long time in prison, and most have been judged as unsafe for release. And if you watch this video, you start to see the people who really do have that inbuilt disorder, and the convincing that they go through to convince themselves that they're ready to leave, and then they do testing on them to see if they're still uncontrollably compelled and titillated by children. The answer is that almost all of them are, and they can't fix it. Not everyone is that way. In fact, most people are not that way. In fact, that section of the unredeemable, the one who must be separated from society because they cannot be redeemed, is a very small sector of the people who are in any way interested in the bad stuff. And it is bad stuff. Like, not in any way am I trying to minimize that. It's bad shit. But made me seriously consider at what point I needed to kill myself. I think that's why we need stories like Rudy's. Because it's really easy to believe, if you're titillated by a certain type of drawn pornography, that you're a monster. And it's important to take a step back and really evaluate yourself. And evaluate whether you're just attracted to this pornography or if you're actually going to do something. Now, I'm not a fan of suicide, but removing yourself from the general public if you're going to hurt people, or turning yourself in so you can live a relatively safe life, might be a good idea. But if you are, as Salatic Sayat writes, however, after reading up on this, I was sort of comforted by what I found. The conclusion I came to is that I'm just into petite people, and the controlling or dominating role is something I find appealing as an idea. Probably due to lacking any sort of control or responsibility over anything, and even myself, for most of my formative years. I mean, that comes back to the Freudian idea, which is that we sort of get stuck on whatever phase in our development we stopped in. So if you were stuck with an inability to control, having like these hypersexualized dominant tendencies might make great sense to you. I realized that this might be something about myself, actually, that's interesting. I might be stuck forever trying to mediate conflict. It might be who I am. And I came to this revelation. It's like, whoa. And the reason is because my development went and went and went and went, and it was the point where my parents were fighting and I couldn't do anything to solve it. That's probably where I stalled developmentally, which is way later than like stalling in the oral phase or the, any of those phases Freudian wise. But I think that's where I got stuck, was that my family dynamic was correct in every way except that it wasn't correct and I couldn't fix it. And so forever and ever I will seek out conflicts and try to mediate them. Putting that into terms made me kind of light up and go like, whoa, that seems correct. It seems like something that I would find worth doing. And isn't that weird that like seeking out fixing the thing that was wrong with my own household growing up might be fulfilling to me, might allow me some closure. Weird. Okay. Probably due to lacking any sort of control. These characters are like a hyper-idealized form of these things, and as far as I can tell, don't really indicate anything about actual children for me. Damn good. Yeah, same. I have nothing but love and respect for children. They're so cool. They're so fucking cool. And I mean, I'll use the phrasing that children are beautiful, because children are beautiful. They're potential. Whoa. But sexual? In no way. In utterly no way. But if I go on hentai right now and I scroll through, my brain will light up. So what's going on there? There's a difference. There's some kind of difference. Now, it might not be that one is conducive to the other and whatnot, but I still don't think it's good, necessarily. But there is a difference. On the other hand, I've come to think that the discourse around them, the drawn images, might be actively harmful. It's very likely someone attracted to children feels like I did in my second paragraph, yet it would be impossible to catch them until they actually act upon it, either through directly doing something to a child or consuming adult entertainment involving one. Drawn imagery of child characters might be far and away a better solution than trying to curb this behavior, something that I don't think anybody likes hearing. Yeah, the studies that I've read, and this is a tough pill to swallow, I think, the studies that I've read shown that access to drawn content in the same vein actively prevents desires to go and actively cause harm. And that's pretty interesting. Now, it doesn't make me like it, but I have to admit that I read it and it seems like it might make sense, This one's actually really useful, and it has to do with defining terminology, and I should have done this one earlier. BE2EO says, discussing pedophilia is always difficult, not just because it is highly emotionally charged, yes, but also because the term is seldom defined prior to any discussion. Everyone thinks they know what it means, but there are multiple definitions used in society. Some see it as an adult who sexually assaults a prepubescent child. Some see it as an adult who sexually engages with anyone below whatever age of consent laws pertain, like an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old. Others see it as anyone, including other minors, with a sexual interest in anyone other under age of consent laws. Psychiatrists define it as an adult whose primary sexual attraction is toward prepubescent children, with hebephilia being pubescent children and some other ones being something else. Anyway, the point is that it is deeply important to define your terminology beforehand, otherwise no one can be sure what you're talking about, even if they think they do, and may agree or disagree with you, even if they only knew your definitions. Without clear definitions, words become meaningless, and we might as well grunt at each other. Yep, I mentioned this in a previous discussion. If I say apple and you think purple bear, and I say I like apples, there's a problem here, because you think I'm saying I like purple bears. Laconic kibitz, I think this is the easiest criticism of me, and so I'll mention it. Hey, Teeaboo, I love your thoughts and discussions of the video. Honestly, I think I could listen to you talk about this stuff all day. The topics and perspectives you display are intriguing and thought-provoking. However, I do not think everything you said in this video belongs in a Mushoku TENsei reaction video. I think it's worth considering making video essay format videos where you draw from multiple sources while keeping reaction videos on topic. Just my 2 cents. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I know. I tried to timestamp it out and so that you can skip to stuff. Again, this was in the midst of essentially a manic phase, so I'm sort of just stream of consciousnessing, and that will get better as we move along. I'm not 100% convinced that separating it out is the way to go, because it was Mushoku that sparked all of that discussion, so, but, yeah, considered and noted. Don't randomly ban me, wrote, I found this video even more interesting than the last, super sick, especially in regards to the difficulty of something you shouldn't be doing versus the ease of something right for you. For me, that is especially true for learning to cook and learning Japanese or even going to the gym. Teaching myself these things comes a lot easier than having someone peer over my shoulder metaphorically. Even though you've been taught the lessons by a peer or tutor, sometimes it takes making a mistake for everything to click into place. Though that process is not true for all things or all lessons one must learn, but I posit it is true for some people some of the time at least. Makes perfect sense. Current Vibes has another criticism. I'll read through this one. I originally had a huge write-up as a comment on the specific topics you talk about, but I think it would be much better, smaller, and more general. Just keep in mind that I still do really love your content and what you aim for. This video really reminded me of a typical high school essay I would write. It'll a stream of consciousness with no editing, so yeah. There are a lot of things in it that seem drawn from personal life experience that only correlate in the most minor of ways directly to the topic of Mushoku TENsei. Yeah. Drawing from your own experiences is not bad. It is the very way people create brand new thoughts and ideas. It's the only way. Reevaluating things to find more meaning is similarly valuable, but it's necessary for you to stay grounded and realize that not everything has changed, nor does everything have exactly the meaning that you would want. In this case, that is not the case. Sometimes the story is just a story. Never true. And sometimes it can have meaning. That is never true. I'm sorry. I strongly disagree with the statement. Sometimes a story is just a story. Only a shitty story. Only a story written by someone who doesn't understand what stories is. And sometimes it can have meaning beyond the surface, but that does not mean that there is always an incredibly profound meaning behind every action. Fair. It's like you found a treasure chest after digging a hole in the ground, and now you are digging up the entire earth expecting to find more treasure wherever you search. I have been rewarded every time I have dug in Mushoku TENsei so far. I don't think that there's anything in the previous video that isn't goddamn gold. So, I agree with you that this, on principle, is accurate. However, in the particular instance, I think it is entirely inaccurate, because everywhere I've looked in Mushoku TENsei, there has been layer upon layer upon layer of treasure. I just strongly disagree. It's like when you say reevaluating things to find more meaning is similarly valuable, but it's necessary to stay grounded and realize that not everything has changed, nor does everything have exactly the meaning that you would want. First off, I don't think anything has the meaning that I would want. It does have meaning, though. A lot of people put this down as like, oh, you're just trying to put your own perspective onto the thing. It's like, no shit. How many times have I described that the way that we look at things, the way that we view things is only through the lens of the things that we value and through our own perceptive structures. And that's why we need discussion around the topic. And it's why watching other people's perceptions via media is valuable, because you get to see from their perspective and you get to see things that clash with your own perspectives. But like, when I went through and I was talking about stuff like Hitogami being being the conscience and this stuff being in a liminal space, there's nobody in this whole comment section that has discussed that back and forth with me. Not one comment has discussed that topic. Just people saying like, I don't think that your understanding of that scene is correct. It's actually just Rudy being blah blah blah. And it's like, no, it is not. No, it is not. There are allegories here. So my counterpoint to you is going to sound like a very arrogant one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Forgive me for my arrogance, which is, you say you're digging up the entire earth expecting to find more treasure wherever you search. It is necessary to stay grounded and recognize that not everything has changed. But here's the thing. I think I will stand by almost everything that I said in the previous video, and I think that all of it is accurate, more accurate than accurate about Mushoku TENsei. And I will say that just because you cannot see it does not mean that it is not there. Arrogant, that is. I understand. Grandstanding, perhaps. It's definitely me saying, like, your eyes are not open, and I believe it. Because if you were to open your eyes a little bit, I think you would see some of the same things. And then we could discuss them and we could argue about what they actually mean. But until you can see them, you can't see them. And I'm losing the ability to see them, which is so scary. It's me coming out of that fluid state that I've been in for the last week. I'm falling out of it, and I'm going to be unable to see these things for a while. But it doesn't mean they're not there. It doesn't mean they're not there. It doesn't mean there aren't treasure chests. It's really easy to deny their existence, because you cannot see them yourself. Aditya Chakrabarti writes, the extent people go to avert their eyes from things that they perceive as negative always frustrates me. For example, Sigmund Freud. I recently did an online course on psychology, and Freud inevitably came up. His ideas were introduced with an ew and dismissed simply because his ideas of being attracted to one's parents incited disgust, which is bonkers because it's accurate. Like, duh, they're the people you're most okay, whatever. I mean, Freud's got a ton of shit that is just straight up wrong about his psychological, like, perspectives, as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm not Freud, but I can look back on it and be like, that's some stupid shit, because we have better explanations now. But still, you cannot dismiss him as part and parcel to the lineage of psychology. It's crazy. Simply because his ideas of being attracted to one's parents incited disgust, that really brought down the value of the class for me. While I did find his ideas disgust-inducing, the disgust was just an afterthought, one kept at the back of my mind since I was learning about him from an academic standpoint. In other words, my first response was to examine his argument logically, like, maybe there is some substance to it, seeing that many children at some point claim that they will marry their parent. It's still ew, but it does require further inquiry. But no, that mere ew served as enough excuse for the dismissal of all his ideas, as if ew was obviously enough justification. And it is, because the disgust response is one of our strongest responses. You have a disgust response to somebody, you're willing to do almost anything to them because they're disgusting to you. I see the same thing when it comes to cases of pedophilia. If a person admits to pedophilic attractions, there will instantly appear a mob to crucify the person, a mob who is not interested in knowing the person's story, a mob that doesn't even consider that person a person anymore. DT writes him, and I don't think that's accurate because there are female pedophiles. They don't care to find out if the person never acted on them before instantly denouncing the person to be the incarnation of evil deserving of death, and this is harmed immensely by the lack of definitions around the thing. Because somebody who, after years of exposure to lots of extreme pornography, finds themselves attracted to certain types of pornography is not an innate pedophile, right? Like, there's a difference. It doesn't mean that that's good, but there's a difference. My perspective on the matter is that, okay, so this person has such tendencies, it's obviously and clearly harmful. What do you want him to do about it? Them to do about it. It's not like he asked to have such attractions. What good will crucifying them do? They need counseling, not punishment, as long as they haven't actually acted out yet. The instant rejection and refusal to look at the negatives of this world does only harm. Such trigger happiness of the model will be used to the self-denial of those who do have such negatives. Those who deny their own negatives and fail to recognize, come to terms with, and learn to control them are bound to one day mess up. And I think society needs to change to stop this from going on, yes. I believe we should stare long and hard at the world's negatives, regardless of how much it may turn our stomachs to do so, and learn to deal with them instead of just averting our eyes from them and rejecting their existence. Stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares back at you. You'll see your own horror, your own evil in the darkest parts of humanity. Because they will continue to exist. Because they continue to exist and will continue to exist, regardless of our willingness to recognize them. I also hold the belief to hate the sin, not the sinner. A person's personality is shaped by nature and nurture, and neither is in the person's control. So can the person really be blamed if they turned out a certain way? To some extent, yes. There must be a degree of personal responsibility. If you divorce personal responsibility from the individual, then, well, I guess I'm not really responsible for any of the stuff that I do. I know that's not what you mean to argue, but that's the path that argument gets taken when taken to an extreme, and you have to be careful about that. It feels more reasonable to me to recognize the world which twists people to such dispositions to be the problem, so we can recognize the need to change it in order to prevent the same things from happening again. It's both. The systems have to be better, and we have to teach the individual that they can be better. That's my role. That one's my role. That one's the role that I step into, if I can. And it is arrogant for me to do so, and I will accept that arrogance. If you go back to the Kill la Kill video, or the section that I edited it from the previous video, yes, I accept. Yes, I will do this for you and for me. Yes, I accept. Recognize the world to be the problem so that we can recognize the need to change it in order to prevent the same things from happening. Yeah, but the individual has to be willing to change as well, to be aware of their capacity to change. That's what I want to instill in you. And I want to instill in you the idea that stories are, to my mind, one of the best ways of doing that, really thinking about them. This was a long rant about my perspectives typed out on a phone during a lunch break at college, so I implore anyone reading it to overlook any grammatical errors. Also, everything I've typed out are my perspective and beliefs, nothing more, nothing less. I don't claim to actually have any clue about what right, wrong, evil, or good is. Fucking sick. Super duper mega sick. Honestly, a great comment, and I've discussed through as we've gone. Also goes and comments on himself. By the way, I welcome any discourse about my beliefs or opinions done in good faith. I'm sort of feeling inspired by Teeaboo. If you're reading this, thanks, man. You're super welcome, my guy. Yeah, absolutely. And some discussion does happen down below with Aether and Aditya and back and forth, and that's pretty cool. Invisible King writes something about the six-sided world. A bunch of TTRPGs run off of six-sided dice. That makes sense. You can see that very first question, and I have some back and forth in long form. There's a lot of misinterpretation on both sides throughout that, but I think we came to some conclusions anyway, so I'm going to skip it over. Lennox also goes through and mentions some things about the way that I express myself in the video in terms of like grandstanding or arrogance, and that's totally understandable, and I get it. There's a lot of feeling like this is the way things are, and that's a fact. I tried really hard to do that, and I'll say exactly what I said before about that. That's not my intent. It is that I am grasping at ideas that are so far beyond me that I can only see the glimpsiest glimpse of them, and so when I'm stating them, I'm actually just trying to state them as fast as I can so that they don't slip out of my brain. When I say that a thing is true, it's because it seems to be true to me in that moment, and I have to put a blanket caveat at the beginning that's like, not everything I say is fucking true. It's me attempting to figure out truth, not saying what is true. But I'm going to say this is the case because that's way more efficient than saying, I think and I believe because of some things that I've read and some interpretations that I have that maybe just possibly this thing might be the case. I'm not going to fucking do that because it's lame. It's lame. It's stupid and it takes more time. And by the time I've said all the qualifications to get the point out, I've forgotten half the point. So I'm just going to say what I think is true. And you can just put the I think in front of it yourself. I understand and I'll try to do it more by myself. But no. I can't. I have to speak what I have to speak in the way that I have to speak it. I'll work on making it more open and accessible and like speaking it in a way that's not aggressive, maybe. Sorry, I will work on it, and I promise that I will, and I hope that I've been working on it over the course of this episode and this video, but we'll see. Chris Co, wow, 4 hours, XD, me happy. I have one thing I think is worth sharing. In reference to the painful honesty section, I think that standing by and actively upholding your ideals when faced with the world is true courage and a show of strong character. For being true to your beliefs, you have my respect and wholehearted support. Wish you luck and fulfillment in the future. I appreciate that immensely. And then Chris Co goes on to finish off with what I think is a great comment. And having watched it all, this might be one of your best videos thus far that I have watched. I love the mythological reading of MT, and I hope you continue to view it from this lens. I will as best as I can. But at the same time, do not forget that while clearly having its basis in the hero myth, MT is a unique story of its own, and viewing it as anything less might cause you to miss some of the nuance. Not that you have missed anything significant because of that so far, just something to be aware of. Yeah, I'm not trying to fit this to the Campbellian hero myth. I'm trying to figure out what the myth is based on MT. Does that make sense? Like, I'm coming at it from the opposite perspective. I'm not trying... As much as I will be instilling my own perceptual structures about stories onto the story and interpreting them in that way, and when I come to things and I'm like, I don't know what that means, that's because it doesn't fit into my structure, and I'm trying to incorporate that. That's what's going on there. But for the most part, I'm watching MT not as this is an example of the kinds of stories that I already understand, but this is a story that can inform my understanding of stories, and that's more valuable. So when I say stuff like, whoa, we're in a liminal space and we're talking to the conscience, I'm not doing that because I think that we must go to liminal spaces and talk to the conscience. It's because that's where we ended up in the story, and that's how it seems to interpret through my perceptual lens, and that expands my ideas about what that liminal space might mean, because I'm talking about it in that context. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I don't fucking know. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing, right? All I know is that I'm pointing myself in the direction of the most dense truth that I can find, and hopefully expressing it as much as I can. I am not going to talk about Jordan Peterson. It's too fraught. Know that I stand behind my my comment on it. Hi, it's a couple hours later. I have already watched Mushoku, so I have to be careful not to spoil anything for any of you. But there is I'm currently editing through, and there is a comment that I have to read. I would be remiss to miss this comment. It is too important. This comes from Kiki is Best Girl, who has also had some excellent comments on previous editions, so I'm sad that I crossed over this one before. Oh, this is a long one. Kiki is Best Girl writes, sorry for my delirious and possibly nonsensical rambles. TLDR, make love not war. I know I wanted to say something about the contents of this episode as there is so much to address, but I didn't know exactly where to begin, so I slept on it a few days. Well, here I am, sick, shivering, and loopy from a fever, and in my dazed state, worried for my health, I realized that most of what we could collectively fight or argue over doesn't matter. That most of it is trivial, that most of it comes from simple personal bias. That it would be better if, instead of arguing about it, we simply tried to understand each other. So now sick, dazed, loopy, and tired, I think I know what I want to say. I want to put this out there, and I don't know that this is true, but from where I sit, this whole comment from Kiki looks to me like revelation. I've talked about this before. It's that moment where a bunch of things that you know are true are building up on inside of you, and they just haven't gone and clicked into place. You know, we talk about something clicking, you got all this information there, and then it clicks and you understand the whole concept. This, to me, looks like revelation. Enlightenment. Pam! A bolt from the blue. A slight shift in your perspective, Kiki, where maybe because of your weird, delirious, feverish, dreamlike state, and I think that's quite possible, some things that you hadn't aligned all clicked together. I think that's fascinating, and I thank you so deeply and so much for putting it into words as you have, as best as you can, and describing what you're thinking, which is in and of itself a description of yourself. And that is beautiful to see. I say majestic, actually. I don't know that that's what has happened to you, Kiki, but it looks like it from where I'm sitting, and that's pretty fucking cool. It's what I did. I recorded myself the Kill la Kill video. I recorded myself in revelation, in enlightenment. And I've been trying to record as much of the aftershocks of that as I possibly can before it all disappears from me. But You just had a bit of it and you've got it recorded down. You can come back and look at this thing that you wrote in a weird state where you weren't quite you, but you are still you. And who is that person, and who, how do they relate to the person that you are when you come back and read this? Interesting. As defined by the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, sonder, noun, the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. An epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once, as an extra sipping coffee in the background, or as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. We are not simple beings, freeze frames of ourselves, analyzable and consumable, to be understood and moved past, like back covers in libraries to be selected or discarded based on inadequate summaries of entire existences. We are not frames in galleries, depictions of decisions we agonized over with blurbs beneath them explaining insufficient context. We are infinitely complex snowball effects, directly led to by the events before, and struggling to influence our path forward down an unforgiving slope. Part of a thundering stampede of individuals, dead set in their identities, unable to truly understand the passing glance we get of those struggling around us. All of us alone, and all of us islands. To understand ourselves is a monumental task, and to understand each other is only more difficult still. The things we think, feel, do, believe, all results of the lives we've led up to any particular point. A history invisible to the presumptuous eyes judging single moments of our lives removed from context and explanation. We are all products of our circumstances and the decisions we responded with. Before he died, Rudius was who he was because it was what he made of the situation he had. And regardless of what we think of it and how we feel about it, it was Rudius, embarrassing and disgusting in his sincerity, but directly caused by the cruelty he experienced. But a child, understanding, responsible, forgiving, and growing. That too is Rudius now, doing his best to fight the inertia to move as he had before. Or the inertia to move as he had before. To change who he had been and become who he is, doing the best with his current circumstances. Ruijerd is both guilty of his past sins and simultaneously tragic because of them. His demonic determination to both clear the name of his people and commit any evil act in his pursuit are contradictory but believable. Maybe the most believable. He is shattered and alone. Not misunderstood, instead surrounded by those who firmly believe they understand him. And maybe they do, maybe better than himself. And much like Ruijerd, all of us, when judged by snippets of our lives, revealing none of the struggle and none of the growth, our actions, our ideals, our beliefs look alien and inexplicable. And in that strangeness, that caricature version of ourselves becomes easy to criticize and dismiss, to throw away like rotten fruit. But you believe what you do because it makes sense to who you are. You hold things dear to you because they've meant something to you in your struggles. You love who you love and you hate who you hate because your character is one who has come to feel that way. A summation of the days you've lived. The same is true for me. The same is true for Rudius, and the same is true for T. I do not like Jordan Peterson. Fair. And I have my reasons for that. Also fair. But to dismiss every word, every opinion, every belief of Jordan Peterson because I dislike him is to throw out an entire individual simply for being displeasing to my sensibilities. I do not like Jordan Peterson, but I cannot dismiss him because he, too, is a product of his experience. I may disagree with him on a lot of subjects, but he has spent his life educating himself and learning what he can, and the lessons he has taken from the things he has learned are guided by the answers he searched for when life left him nothing but questions. And in that light, his beliefs are no more or less valid than anyone else's. They should not be dismissed, nor should those of any individual. We should instead do our best to understand them and to learn what we can given the context of his experience, and to recognize that they might be faulty and flawed from the outset, because as you said, the things he has learned are guided by the answers he searched for when life left him nothing but questions. A very poetic way of saying by confirmation bias. No matter how open a person's mind is before they seek information and knowledge, they come in with presuppositions and inherent bias. So the things that he might have learned might be flawed. And we might be able to learn something from that process as well. How interesting. Like if we start to view the person as a whole, we can view them as a whole. And Kiki has got this. Kiki has fucking nailed this to the wall, like so many diatribes against Catholicism, nailed to the fucking door, man. We should instead do our best to understand them and to learn what we can given the context of their experience. And as much as I dislike him, it would be deeply dishonest of me to pretend I don't agree with him on just as many things as I disagree with him about. Furthermore, to superimpose my reasons for disliking JP, logical as they might seem to be, onto T's opinions of the same individual is to discredit the circumstances that have led to T being who he is. It is to ignore the life he has lived that has brought him to believe what he does, and to hold dear those things which he has found meaning within. And no one should, in good conscience, dismiss his perspective, while being unwilling to impose that perspective on their own opinions the way we are predisposed to impose our perspectives upon him and every other person around us. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. The same is true for any subject regarding any individual. It is not about being blindly forgiving or accepting. It is instead about not being blindly dismissive. Eris's reaction is exaggerated but relevant. Guided by what she believes to be a fully educated opinion, she is confronted with the half-baked assumption that her beliefs regarding Ruijerd truly are. It is a knee-jerk reaction based not on the reality of an individual, but on the presumptions instilled on her through her life, and quickly she comes to realize something we could all do well to keep in mind. We are not villains or heroes. We are not good or evil. We are simply, sincerely, pathetically alive. Much too complex to ever really understand. But to dismiss each other's experiences, to give up on trying to understand, is a disservice to each other and to ourselves, and in a perfect world, we should all react as Rudius did in this episode, aware of our opinions, but always open to being proven wrong. I have to agree with Kaufme, who responds to this to say, "This has to be my favorite comment in this entire comment section, so carefully worded and articulated. It was a pleasure to read and take in. I must save this somewhere. Thank you." And that is part of the reason that I had to speak the entire comment here, because now it is saved. And now, more specifically, it is part of the discussion that more people will watch, because now that I've said it, more people will say it. And I hope, beyond hope, Kiki, that in no way do you take that as me doing the thing where somebody like loudly repeats a joke that one person said quietly and then takes the credit for it. Your thoughts are yours, but I have a little bit of a platform, and so I can get them out there to more people. And I'm going to, because your thoughts matter in this moment. And they matter not just because you've done the best job, I think, of anyone in this comment section to coming to the conclusion that I've come to, which is that a person can be wrong about many things and very, very right about many other things. And you don't dismiss people because of a word that they get slathered with, you know? The word that slathers that man is bigot, and I don't know if it's accurate, but it seems to be too powerful a word, because anything that comes after it is immediately dismissed as, well, maybe this is a spoiler, just purely evil. Back to the video. Ooh, I know. We will end with this last one, because I wanted to keep this relatively tight. Rope Snake. Rope Snake, hey bud. Rope Snake has been on my channel since the very beginning. First couple of weeks, I believe, which is crazy. It's always fun to look back and see, like, wow, this person's been following me on and off for like 4 years. Bet they've got a better depiction or an understanding of me than I do in some ways, you know? And of course, worse because it's just a parasocial relationship, but there is meaning there, and there's meaning to knowing that people like you are still here, Rope Snake. It means a lot to me. And so does your comment, so let's read it. There's too much here to comment on, but thank you for going in depth on this analysis as much as you have. I will have to chew on some of this, but my brief and immediate response is that if stories cannot change a person, then I am not real. I can name 2 anime which directly and demonstrably changed my life and the way that I think: Ojamajo Doremi and Tatami Galaxy. You said something along the lines of, stories should teach common sense and fundamental truths like don't rape people, because just because these things may be obvious to you doesn't mean they're obvious to everyone, and that really resonated with me. I've thought a lot recently about how life-changing media, what I personally classify as 10 out of 10, can only exist in the moment and circumstances in which you can consume it. Man is never the same man, and the river is never the same river, so that 10 out of 10 is partly time-bound as well. That's cool. With the examples I gave above, I can still rewatch them and enjoy them for what they are, but they can never have the same effect on me as they once did. The themes of these stories are not actually all that complex in hindsight, but the reason they resonated with me and changed my life is because I found them when I needed their lessons most. They don't speak to my current self because their truths are now simply obvious to me, but that doesn't lessen the impact they had on me. Good stories should say obvious things, because what is obvious to one person is a fundamentally different perspective to another, and confronting these different perspectives is how we grow and change. I thought of a really easy way to talk about this idea of, like, of how we dismiss stories that have real value just because we already see the value in them. First off, when somebody comes up to you and they tell you about something that you already know, they tell you something like, man, I just realized if you do your homework early, you get free time. And you're like, duh. And your response to them is very often what you want to say is, yeah, I know. I know it. So? And? Tell me something useful. So what? You're totally ignoring that thing was a useful revelation to them. Because 5 years ago or whatever, when you had that revelation, it was a useful revelation to you. So why wouldn't it be useful to them? Or when you watch a child and they're watching like kids TV or Paw Patrol or something, and a couple of characters are like, we have to work together to save Jimmy from the well. And the other guy's like, oh, I guess that's true. And the kid goes, working together with another kid is important? And you're like, duh, stupid idiot child. Why didn't you know that already? Well, because the kid didn't fucking know it already. So maybe let's stop being condescending about the things that other people don't realize and just be like, yes, realize the thing. You know this thing. Now we can dance the game of you understanding that thing, right? It's if it's a simple lesson, you watch enough kids TV and you get stories like this that are like, well, she wants this and I told her that I would do it with her. She wants to go to the mall and I told her that I would, but now my mom tells me that I have to go somewhere else, and now I'm torn because I don't want to do the thing with my mom, but I also don't want to tell my friend that I can't go with her, and now I'm stuck. And it's like a whole complicated circumstance happens where the kid runs away from home and it tries to do the thing and it all gets chaotic and destroyed and all the relationships are fucked up, and they come back to the end and it's like, oh, honey, if you had just told me that you needed to go to the mall with your friend, I would have postponed your doctor's appointment until the next day and we could have figured it out. And it's like, oh, if you communicate the things that you want, maybe the people around you will accommodate you and you don't have to hurt and feel like you're betraying everybody. And, a 30-year-old watches that and is like, this is stupid and dumb and childish. What does that even mean? What does childish mean? It means that this is the thing that children need to know and I'm not one of them. Okay, but what if you never learned that? What if you're 30 and you never learned that you can communicate what you need? Because when I go to the gym and I'm working out in a squat rack, sometimes, most of the time, people in the gym know what they're doing. But sometimes a guy will come in who looks like, they're varied, but usually it's somebody in their late teens, early 20s, male and skinny. It's usually what it ends up being. And it's happened enough times that there's like an archetype. Nervous, skinny, male, just post-adolescence. Will come over and will sit or stand somewhere near the squat rack and sort of stare awkwardly. And I'll be there, I'm working, and I'll sort of glance over and they'll look away from me like, oh. I'm like, oh my god, okay, are they checking me out? What the fuck is going on here? This is weird. They're obviously staring at me or the squat rack. What's going on? And eventually I'll like gesture to it and be like, do you need this? And they'll be like, oh, I just need the 25 over there. It's like, my guy, you stood here for 10 minutes waiting for me to do something, not accomplishing the thing that you needed to accomplish, which was the easiest thing to accomplish. It was just, I need this thing. Can I go and get it? It's in your space. I'm trying to be respectful. But the person never learned how to ask for the thing that they want or communicate their desires because it embarrasses them or it makes them feel like an imposition. And I've felt that way before, but not to that extreme. And it's like, well, how long is that guy going to sit there and stare at the weights that he needs to do his own workout before coming in and doing a slightly difficult thing to get it done? I don't fucking know. But clearly he hasn't learned this communications thing. So maybe there are people for whom those stories are not childish, but deeply necessary. And, if you go back to the specific example that is in Mushoku TENsei, it's don't fucking assault people. It's not good. You wouldn't like it if it were to happen to you. And you look at that and you're like, duh. But what if you'd never incorporated that? What if you'd never internalized it? What if you'd never had that perspective? And all you have is your burgeoning desire and no understanding of the other side. And only social pressures that are like, sex is good and normal. And how about the millions of instances or thousands of instances of pornography where, as I said it before, you fuck them till they love you, right? And how many where they're like, that's not gonna happen, and then they go, oh my god, and little hearts pop out, and they're like, oh, and they love it, and you internalize that shit because you haven't internalized reality. How about we get some stories that have some reality in them and can deliver it on a platter to the people who need it the most and maybe they can become slightly, moderately acceptable people who don't fucking rape other people or murder them. Sounds good to me. Good stories should say obvious things, because what is obvious to one person is a fundamentally different perspective to another, and confronting these different perspectives is how we grow and change. Boom! Share your obvious. How about that? How about that? Share your obvious. Share the fundamental truths of your existence with the world. See if other people resonate with them. Might work. Might fucking work. Okay, there are so many more comments that I just can't do them. What happened last time on Mushoku TENsei? We went to a new place. I'm going to pull up the episode to skim through, just so I don't really directly miss anything. How about that? We start off in well, again, what I'm calling liminal space, where he is himself inside non-existent space talking to Hitogami. Again, I will stand by my opinion that Hitogami is not an extant being, but is instead an externalization of internal ideas. And even if within the, to be clear, even if within the world he's an extant being with literal power, that's not the case. Like, this is what I mean by this is the fundamentals of metaphor, okay? This is that, and it's also the other thing. It's both. He is literally a god-man thing that is a part of this world and whatever. But again, this world is not real. This world is a metaphorical framework for the rebirth and revitalization of a human soul after the destructive event of recognizing that he's not proper. Which is the event where he pushes kids out of the way of a truck, right? Like, he dies for it. He has a moment of self-sacrifice, but that's an emblematic, archetypal moment of self-sacrifice that works for anything, as opposed to a specific moment. And I think that if you're still in the mode of only seeing this as Rudius is a real boy who really dies and goes to a real other world where he meets real people like Sylphie and Eris and all these people, and you don't view them as like externalizations of the internal processes of Rudy, and really a framework in narrative terms and heroic terms as opposed to literal terms, then I don't know that we can communicate about this show effectively, because I do not see it that way. I see that as the basic layer of it, and it's there. Like, yes, Rudy person became dead, went to a place, got raised by people, but it's very, very clearly it's the worst person does the ultimate sacrifice and is rewarded with a new opportunity to become a new person. It's literally the death and the sacrifice of the self. Rewarded with the opportunity to become a new person in a world where everything works as it should, and they have the opportunity to demonstrate their actual abilities and do so, and learn from their mistakes and do so. And why do all our interactions happen with women? Because it's the thing that Rudy has the most trouble with, right? Why do all these things work in this way? Why does he have these weird interactions with his family? Because family is part of the dynamic that he wasn't able to solve before, and he's overcoming all the things that he overcame. It's metaphorical and allegorical at core. So I have to stand by that. That is the case. I cannot see this scene otherwise. I cannot see God as God. I see God as an internalization, externalization of your conscious self. I cannot help but see it that way. And perhaps it is the case that people watching this cannot help but see it the other way, where it is just the way that it is. And fair, so be it. Hopefully you can grasp something from the perspective that I'm sharing with you. Because again, all I can do is share the seemingly obvious truth with you and hope that it is as true as it can be, and you can discuss it and argue against it and stuff, and people have argued very specifically. Let me go and find this one because it's great. This comes from very first question's long comment. But yeah, I don't know what book you were referring to, but Mushoku TENsei is a story about a man who only lived trapped in his own brain, learning how to interact with people and slowly realizing a person can't be a person by himself. He needs to learn to empathize with people and realize his own way of thinking is flawed, and learn that to be whole, you need other people, you need to respect other people and treat them like humans. It's not about truth or beliefs, it is a man learning through his experience. This is a deeply arrogant statement. You think, you should have put I think in front of this one, you think that Mushoku TENsei is a story about a man who only blah, blah, blah. And of course it is about all those things, but to say that it is not a story about truth or beliefs is fucking false. You are straight up wrong. Very first question. I'm sorry. It is about truth or beliefs. They are the things that inform Rudy's whole behavior. To say that this piece of media is only and explicitly and exclusively about the literal story that's present in it is so incredibly small-minded. I'm sorry, very first, but that is just not it. That ain't it, Chief. There are also a number of comments about this moment not being arrogant and Rudy not having arrogance, and that's fundamentally wrong, I think. Rudy's deeply arrogant. He thinks he knows what's best in many, many ways. I understand that his most of his struggle is overcoming his arrogance and his belief that he already understands everything. You know? Like, it is arrogant for him to think that his understanding of women is such that using eroge lines will accomplish the task that he wishes it to. He goes, I understand how the world works, and the world goes, right? He tries it with Sylphie and the world goes, Nyom. He tries it with Eris and the world goes, Nyom. And he's like, well, that doesn't work. That's arrogance. It's getting crushed. The story is him letting go of it, but he is arrogant. He believes he understands how things work. And while talking to God, he has the nerve and the arrogance to argue back against truth. You did this to me? It's just game over. He also has the arrogance to assume that he knows what the man God is looking for. Oh, yes, you're going to tell me that just a change in perspective is what I need. Bullshit. Well, he's arrogantly assuming that a change in perspective is what Hitogami will express and ask of him. And it's not. That is not what Hitogami expresses from him. That's arrogance. It's assuming what other people will do. It's assuming that you know better. He is Luciferian in his arrogance. He believes that he already knows everything that he needs to know, even as he is shown over and over and over that is not the case. And over the course of this episode, a bunch of the things that Rudy knows are shattered for him. He knows all these things about Spurds, and they're not true. He knows all these things about Roxy, and they're not true. He knows all these things about the world, and they're not true. He doesn't know all these things, and he finds out that where he doesn't know things, he can't be arrogant because he's just like, I don't know. That's pretty interesting. Let me give you some advice. And so here it gets to be more. Oh, I've met people like you in my old life, assuming that you understand a person completely. That's arrogant. Oh, I get your whole deal. I've met you. I can just encapsulate you. Imagine if somebody did that to you, right? They said, oh, I get you. I see what you're wearing and the way your hair is, and I see your skin color in your eyes, and I know everything about you. That's arrogant. That's what I mean by arrogance. You're one of those people who come peddling false hope. You just want to give me an attitude change. I'm past the point where an attitude change could help me. This is also arrogant. He believes himself to understand himself because an attitude change would help him. He's wrong. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, so we talk about the being in this particular way. We talk about all the dragon stuff and things, the mana cataclysm, all that jazz. And we awaken. We have the whole thing with the Spurd, with Ruijerd, and talking it through, and the funny stuff with Eris, and figuring it all out. And then we become friends, and we all walk together. Yay! Friends who all walk together, and we talk about some stuff. Discover that he's a mass murderer. A bunch of people wrote a bunch of comments about how Ruijerd is like a multi-level mass murderer. None of that is expressed in this episode, so like, how would I know that, my guy? It really isn't expressed here very effectively, I don't think. Now, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I just missed it, and I'm willing to admit that, but it's not expressed well. His anger is expressed, his indignation is expressed, but the rest is not. I missed the father-in-law jokes, because they're cute. They are just cute. I still don't get the awfulness of the food. It's kind of sucky. We do get the storyline around Ruijerd quite a bit, and all this stuff about the Demon Laplas. A couple of people, specifically very first question, really went off on me for talking more about one thing than the circumstance of Ruijerd being or Laplas being a betrayer. Right, me focusing on a guy known for being evil actually being noble instead of focusing on a guy hailed as a hero betraying his people. Yeah, because Ruijerd is in the episode and Laplas isn't. Simple. That's literally all it is. There's the very first question goes and does this whole projection thing that I see that's like, you're really thinking about it this way and you're ignoring the whole thing about Laplas because you're in this mode of trying to redeem people or looking at stuff that is only, and that's just not the case. Laplas isn't in the episode and Ruijerd is, and I focused on what I focused on. I missed something because my perceptual structure isn't perfect. Just be careful about what you project onto me because it's often not the case. It's often not the case. Okay, seems impossible. We can't do this. There's no way we can get this bird to be redeemed. And we find out about the idea of the spears, which again is Lord of the Rings rings. They are corrupting power that corrupts. And he's now carrying the soul of his son who is sacrificed in the process, right? And that's the soul of his son is the weapon that he fights with and fights for, and that has some metaphorical layers to it. That works. We agree, given a moment of real insight, of real connection, we agree to help, and away we go from this village out into the beyond. With episode title coming up, A Chance Encounter. So we're going to meet somebody else, and it will be interesting. Awesome. That's going to be my comments spotlight for the episode. I'm going to stop here and give myself a bit of a break and come back to watch the episode proper. See you in a sec. Peace. All right, welcome back. We are ready to roll for Mushoku Tensei episode 10. I just went and spent a few minutes out in the sunlight, make sure that I'm more awakened, refilled up my tea. Again, I'm using the cold brew stuff here. It's delightful. And let's have ourselves a chance encounter as we head off into the wild blue yonder as before. Now a more solidified trio of Rijerd, Eris, and your boy Rudius, all heading out together and sort of aligned on their goals, having fully grokked what Rijerd is doing with and having agreed and accepted genuinely with understanding, going along with him and being a part of his quest as well. So we're sort of building ourselves an adventuring party, and that's fun. I think our next chance encounter will probably be a new member of our adventuring party, but maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe we'll run into something that will more effectively elucidate the nature of existence to us. Because currently the nature of the world is a little bit chaotic and confused. What with the demon girl and the dragon guy and the dragon king guy with his lightning boy and all this weird shit that's going on, and the big mana cataclysm and the ball in the sky, and potentially the dragon, evil dragon god being important part of stuff, and there's stuff happening, and we'd like to know what that stuff is. So maybe this chance encounter will help us figure that out. Or maybe this will just be like a random encounter against some goblins in the woods. Like, that would be cool too. Let's find out. So, I've got episode 10 of Mushoku Tensei up and ready to go. It's at 0 seconds. There'll be 2 versions, picture-in-picture in the description, timer on YouTube, beep beep timer to count you down. Let's get into it. No! Huh? It's just fighter stuff. Oh, God. Well, she's acclimated really fast. Why not just eat the meat, man? You don't need the grubs. The grubs are fine. So what about Wolf? Wolf's probably pretty good. What we looking at? Who? That is a plain. That is a plateau. That is an incredible formation. Cool. Oh, that hurts my eyes because of the frame rate. Also cool everywhere. Interesting. Tetto. Oops. Sorry, I hit my... Yeah, they're not as humanoid. Huh. Well, there's there's the explanation of the murderer. Disguise. What's the idea, really? Blue goop. What is that blue stuff anyway? Did they just color his hair blue? They just colored his hair blue. He just looks like a Migard. And cover up his little gem. Out into the open. Okay, but we've got Alive as our foundation, and that's scary, because they could get found out. Awesome. World building. Crystalline, huh? So sandstone structures with, like, Aztec Incan roots as well as Middle Eastern roots? Super interesting. And then these crystalline growing structures of city. Make the furries happy. Sorry. Oh, yummy. Snacks. And they're the only humans that we've seen so far, I think. So that's something. That's very cute. And it fits with the whole nya thing. Running out, huh? Gonna have to find a way to get money. So that's pretty interesting, right? Like, clearly there's a bit of a caste system here. Who's in the big castle thing? Who has the power? Oh, no. Mm-mm. No. God, I hate it. Oh, Jesus. That's two vertically moving shots that are... The frame rate's weird. Oh, he just put the necklace on him, dyed his hair blue. Ah. Oh? This kid. An idiot. Oh, this is gonna work. Ha ha ha. Nobody's gonna believe it. Because his hair's the wrong color. Ha 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 ha. No? Yeah, there it is. Okay. And that means the betting against him will be great. Haha, idiot. That's exactly what we wanted. The betting against you will be low. No one will believe. Am I looking at 3 breasts right now? I am. Thanks, brain. Thanks, brain. Yeah, I feel you, bud. That's fun. Oh, they're bounties. We can only take F and D. Is he just making fun of him? Something's gonna happen. There it is. You fucking sure, bro? Oh, that's what I thought. Very fun. Get totally disrespected. But intend to, right? That's gotta be a high rank job, man. It's a lie in plain sight. They might be able to let you in. Oh, we'll see, man. That's a tough game. Oh. Whoa. What? Crystals in the walls? Whoa. That's very cool. Oh, it's starting to fade out of his hair, huh? Is this our chance encounter? Where'd they get a Machop? Fuck. No, 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 no. She does have some super strength. Eris, 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 Eris! Heal like a dog, and then heal like a healer. Where'd they get a Machamp? Is this a boy? No, you should join our party. Hmm. Detuendo. Does it not mean what he thinks it means? Is Dead End somebody else and Ridger just thinks it means him? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. They're gonna get dead. These three guys are gonna get murdered. Ginyu Force rules. Ginyu Force rules. I think those three are gonna get brutally murdered. We're gonna find their bodies. That's my guess. That's tough. Did we just drop into Dream? Whoa. Of course he shows up in Dream. In Nod. Absolutely, you followed your conscience that got you here. I'm still seeing it that way. It does. Well, maybe it's your voice and mannerisms. You've changed. I like that. Why is he glitching out? He can't hold this for very long, can he? Okay, interesting. No, but it's gonna lead to something else. Sometimes it's right to do what is expected of you. They sit together on a bed without discomfort now. How interesting. How deeply interesting. Person. Not a sex object. Companionable. Nice. Nice. Super duper duper nice. Oh, we're gonna get to see the reality. I wonder if it's actually a cat or a cat person. Classic. Must descend into darkness. Carefully, carefully into the cave. Okay, somebody's been here. That's a fucking panther. Insectoid, eh? This bug one doesn't want to be here. Oh, that'll do it. Why don't you tell us? What is this place? Nakama? Comrades? No, you won't. We're on the level, just hear us out. Oh, Ridger just killed him? Yep. No compunctions. You really be sure that you're not gonna regret it being with him, man. 0. Whoa. Hey, Ruijerd? What do you mean? Yeah, what are you talking about? But he hurt a child. Yeah, you've thrown in your lot with a dangerous man. Yeah, but if I didn't kill him, then my reputation would be letting him be evil. What? Yep. Yep. You cannot bridge that gap with Ruijerd, ever. Try a different tact, it's not it. That actually made him step back, though. But I did nothing wrong. Yeah. Why? Huh. Ah, I will end them now. They are evil, I understand. Their punishment is death. Yeah. Because if you get in Rudyard's way in the wrong way, he might do something crazy. You don't know where his compunctions end. Just shitty ones. F. D. Okay. Not without your leader anymore. Staying where we're at for ease. Oh, to help us get to a higher rank? Do you trust me? Yeah. Then you're never gonna make it anywhere in the world. Oh. You are one. Well, it is bad. Okay. So simple and black and white. Oh, she's come so far around. Then he'd be abandoning a child. Still in this mode. Build up the rep. Build it up more. Carrot and the stick. Yeah. Fuck off. Huh. Better than him figuring any of it out. See, he's not evil, he's just a dick. The value of a life and the first job. Wait, what? Oh! Because I thought that this one would be Chance Encounter. Last episode was Chance Encounter with Rudyard. This one's a value of a life and a first job, which is much better as an idea. Duh. And the value of a life part is obvious, because a life. Duh. Alright, that makes so much more sense. The whole episode was like, Chance Encounter? When's that happening? Chance Encounter with a full city? What? Waya. Children and warriors. Cool. Well, I think this episode is fun and explores a bunch of stuff. I think it's less, and maybe this is from me being less in the mindset that I was in, I see less metaphorical and allegorical symbolism, because this one seems more like straightforward storytelling. Now, there is some element of it. We go out into the wild and we find danger. We show Eris's joy at this concept, and everybody else is like, what the fuck? Which I think is correct, right? She lived in a relatively sheltered existence, and so the outdoors is like, oh, how wonderful and new. Where Rudyard at least has lived on his own in the fucking out boonies for a long time and knows exactly how it is, and just like, oh, this is fine. And Rudy is more on that level as well, or at least just doesn't like the bugs. I like this transition in the scorpion. It does like set up the scorpion for us, and then we see them later as foodstuffs, and that's kind of a cool through line. Usually when I see like a bug catching another bug, like, or a spider web with a moth in it, that's usually like a framing device for the show. We've seen it in Mushoku as well. There'll be like a spider, and it's like, oh, the character who's in this scene is caught in a web or something. Or this, it's like somebody bigger and scarier and more monstrous than you has you in a trap, and you're weak and destroyed. But I don't get the feeling like that's the case in this circumstance. It's present there as an idea, but I don't think it's actually intended. Cool landscape, cool location. What else am I going to say about it? It's a cool landscape, a cool location. This is the first shot that goes like to my eyes. It's the rate of change. Something about it goes and it makes my eyes go no. I can't directly and specifically express why that is. There are some shows and some studios where the background art does that, and some where they don't. It has to do with the rate of the thing or the smoothness of the thing or something, and I don't know what it is, but this makes me go It's not as bad as the staircase a little bit later, because that's got like dark brown, light brown, dark brown, light brown, and going by it's like an optical illusion that really genuinely fucks with the visual cortex of my brain in a way that I don't like. But whatever, I don't really care that much. I just wish that little bit of technological thing was better. We get the sneaky suspicions about Dead End, who it turns out is Rudyard, which is really quite cool. None of them look anything like them, which is very cool, that there's this vast variety of demons. And, you know, that tells us something. The humans know of a couple of varieties of demons when the demon continent is chock full of all different sorts of them. And that's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. If you meet him, you will die. He's just like, no, I'll just leap over the cliffs. And of course, we come up with an idea. And we'll see if this backfires at any point or not. I don't know. We're just coming here from Megurdia. I like this moment. This moment has some tension to it as we head toward this opened door. I almost expect like a hand to land on a shoulder and be like, wait, you know, and a scary moment of you're not who you say you are. It's that fear of like, are they going to notice me? Are they going to notice me? I'm out. I'm free. I'm done. And bam, and out into the city we go. Really cool city designs. There are all of these Native American cities that are built into cliff sides in the Americas, into sandstone cliffs in the Americas, and then there are also similarly built in cities in sandstone in like Upper Africa and throughout the Middle East and in areas like that, and elsewhere throughout the world. But this has those feelings. The square buildings feel like that to me. But then we've got these designs on the walls that are, to my eye, distinctly similar to like native South American or Mesoamerican cultures, like Aztec, Incan, Mayan sort of flat engraving on wall styled things. Just the shapes that are being used have some of those elements. And there's something really immediately visually interesting about this society. The whole of the city is built out of the stone surrounding, except for this one pillar that is these glorious, glassine, crystalline skyscrapers, seemingly emblazoned with what looks from this area like metallic glass and obsidian and gold and stuff. And that's weird. That's some weird stuff. Like, there's this whole city of relatively not technologically hyper advanced stuff, and then a magic castle. Okay, who lives in the magic castle? What's going on here? Somebody important lives in that magic castle, and something weird is going on there. You go to Oz, and there's the green crystal palace that is like Oz, and the whole rest of the world is like different than that, and that's the place you need to go. They need to go here, I think. Something weird is up in there, and I'd like to know what it is, at least. And it's just cool. It raises questions. And we see all the little gems embedded in the wall, but we don't know what they mean yet, and we will eventually as night falls, and that's really cool as an idea and as a visual. I love all these establishing shots of locations and areas and dresses and foodstuffs and the city itself as we pan over. Okay, here's this shot. Oh, I do not like it. I just do not like it. Join an adventurers guild, because of course we do. It is prototypically an adventurers guild. This is the D&D tavern. You know, there are people fighting, there are people arm wrestling, there are games of chance and skill, there's the person that you need to talk to, who also happens to be hot, and lots of people who are going to laugh at you for saying that you're better than they are, which of course is Rudy's plan. So Rudy makes a plan, which is that he and Eris go a full chuny and just go like, we're so much cooler than you, and they use Rudyard to back it up. Everybody laughs, and that's exactly what he wants. He wants to be deeply underestimated, which is really great, that it's all working as planned. I actually really like this shot as well. So here's some excessive fan service, the one sexual element of the episode. Okay, excessive fan service in this episode. Super crazy, evil titties. How dare they? It's Rudy is short, and so he gets a face full of taters from a woman who has 3 taters. And we just spend the entire time showing Rudy being a fucking perv and just like, yes, ma'am. I have 0 problem with this. Rudy's a fucking pervert, and the lady has boobs. This seems accurate. 0 problems. Barely even worth mentioning to my mind. And is there any other instance of fan service in this episode? I don't think so. Okay, so jobs, there's a limitation. Idiots and assholes being assholes. I love this moment. I like this a lot. I like it a lot. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even have to make really a face. Someone who's really, truly dangerous and confident doesn't play games with your bullshit. You know, this guy puts his foot out expecting, maybe he'll punch me or something. Maybe I'll get a reaction out of him. And he gets nothing but cold murder. Oh, maybe I shouldn't stick my foot out in front of this guy. Very good. And he lets it go. Very cool. Okay, the lights. Oh, this is rad. I think it's just a cool idea, an awesome visual, and the kind of thing that would just work. Meet Squad. Squad is not quite totally, completely, and utterly kind. Come and join us. Come and eat with us. What is it specifically? Oh, right. Don't ignore me, and then touches Eris, and that's a hard no. How fucking dare you? And of course, Eris has the super strength, and she almost fucking kills this person. I did want to mention something, which is, I think we talked in the last episode about the ability to snap yourself out of an angry circumstance when you're enraged, right? Your ability to look at the person that you're fighting and realize that they're no longer doing the angry dance, and that they're doing the dance is really important, because you gotta stop. And Eris doesn't have that yet. She doesn't have that ability to self-control completely. When she's enraged, somebody else has to do it for her. And we see that's partly her family, right? We have it from the mother and from Soros as they get dragged out of the thing. Their emotions take over them. Their emotions literally take control of them. And they don't necessarily have the ability to control that. And so Rudy has to go and fix things up and use some healing magic, which shows him to be interesting, which is cool. Also, I don't know, did he use an incantation for healing this time? I think he must have. Detto. Actually, I'll just mention this just because of facial animation-wise. The little bits of Rudy being like, Detto. Are really very fun. And VLC just decided to freeze, huh? Detto. Is really good. Detto. This is so much... Wow. So cool. I actually really like it. I think it's good. Alright. And they give up their name, and they're like, Ginyu Force rules! Ginyu Force rules! I think they're all going to get dead. I think we're going to spend some time in the city being like, yeah, everything's fine, we made a name for ourselves, and things are getting better, and oh shit, there's legitimate evil in the world, and it murders people without a second thought. This Rudyard at least has a principle by which he murders people, which we're getting to. Alright, so we think about the finances, and we pop into Hitogami land. Again? Yeah. Your subconscious speaks to you only in dream. Of course, again. If Hitogami is God in this world, fine. Yes, that is true as well. But also, he is dream. He is the subconscious inside of Rudius. I cannot see it any other way. It is the way that I see it. He is Rudy's subconscious and conscience more than anything. That is correct. God is your conscience. I think fundamentally. I think really, truly, at core. There's a book about the evolution of the brain between being a dual voice and unification of the brain. I forget what it's called. There's a book that I read a long time ago, and I can't remember the author or anything else about it, but it was a theory of the evolution of consciousness that came from humans starting out, or primates starting out, with a sort of a truly dual brain, the actor and the judger, and then that evolving into the ego, the subconscious, and the sort of the other elements that I guess Freud sort of drew out or wrote out. And that seems to track to me, and there's this idea that our ideation of what gods are comes in that process of the separation and unification of our brain into that God conscience and the human actor. And so we very often will see that as like a voice in our head that knows what's true. And that can be, I think you can extrapolate deific or theological understandings from that, because if you follow that conscience, in a lot of cases, it takes you the right direction and stuff. I think, so to take it a step back, fundamentally on a human level, I think gods are our conscience. I think. Could be wrong. There could be actually gods. They could be just made up stories. All these things are possible. But you do have a god inside your brain that tells you when what you're doing is wrong, as far as you know. And that's kind of interesting. It's not universal and perfect because it is not a god. It is a man god. It is a human god. It's within you. But that seems to track to me, and so I can't help but see Hitogami in both ways, as this element of this story, but also as the conscience of Rudius. What do you want? Well, you followed me, and it took you to where you needed to be, right? So maybe you should follow me some more, says the conscience to the ego. Hey, buddy, you did the thing I told you to do, and it worked out. Interesting. He would have regarded us even if we'd run away, because he would have. Sounds like you trust him a lot. Interesting. And that's the kind of thing that Rudius will not admit. Rudius will not admit I trust him to himself. But his subconscious will, because it trusts him. And his God will, because it trusts him. So that's how I see it. So why won't you have some faith in me? Well, because to have faith in you would be to have faith in himself, and his image of himself is still the way it is. At least as I see it. Figure it out yourself. God, well, disrespect for self is disrespect for God. It can be. Again, I'm not using God in a religious sense. I'm using it specifically in the sense of the conscience. Get this moment. Yeah, make it quick. I hate the feeling of this body. So let's just get this over with. I hate being exposed. Isn't that interesting that when he is capable of speaking with Hitogami, his conscience, he is in the form that he least likes about himself, but the form that he accurately sees himself as? Maybe because when you speak with your conscience, it can only ever see you accurately and see the things about you that you hate. Remember we talked about Socrates. The conscience, to listen to it, the muse or the voice, the conscience never tells you what to do, it only tells you what not to do. Now, the Hitogami does not do that. It does tell him what to do. Go seek out Rudyard, go seek out the cat, things like that. It tells him what to do. But Socrates' conscience didn't. It told him what not to do. It told him what he was doing wrong. It told him which actions he would regret. It told him of the regrets he already had. So he is laid bare in the form that he likes least. And that is how he sees himself when he's speaking to the thing that seems to see him most clearly. Something about that tracks perfectly to me. Perfectly and completely. You've got me in the palm of your hand anyway. I can't do anything. I can't make choices. Pretty interesting. Because of course he can. Oh no, not at all. What you do is your choice. As is always with the conscience, with gods, with theology, with religion, and perhaps with this real God who doesn't seem able to create change. Why can't this God create change in the world? Well, we write a thing. Only the dragon god that's evil is able to create change or something. I actually don't care what it is because to me it is irrelevant. Well, this person can't create change because it's not real. Just like all of the gods in Dungeons and Dragons can't take active change because they need champions to embody the ideals that they represent and go out into the world and cause change. They need real people. Gods are ideas. Gods are consciences. They don't change things on their own. They can only affect you by hoping that you'll listen to them. And that's correct, I think. That's true. So, why does this god not have any power? Well, because in the story that Rifujin wrote, he wrote a god character that talks to Rudy in his sleep and while he's in liminal spaces that doesn't have any power except to convince him of what is true. And you go, well, why did he write that? And you might say, well, because he wanted to have a god character. And it's like, okay, well, why? Well, because he wanted to express something fundamental about Rudy's condition and situation. It's like, why? Well, because having a conscience that speaks truth to you, that you don't want to listen to, who's kind of an asshole and kind of flippant about the things that you deal with, and only really shows up to you when you don't want to hear it, when you're dreaming. And while you're in that space, you are laid bare and made to feel like the worst version of yourself because you're in the process of self-criticism. And that entity feels confined and constrained and struggled by its own inability to cause change within you, and you feel at odds with it constantly, and you feel much more capable of causing destructive change, and it's so much easier to shift into the dragon god side of things and just run around destroying relationships and throwing things. So much easier. So maybe there has to be some conscious effort to follow your god conscience thing, and maybe Rifujin saw some fraction of that, and maybe some fraction of that got expressed through his work. It's both of the things. It's all of the things at once. Layers. It's like, let me pull up a piece of work by MC Escher that I think is ultra powerful. It's called 3 Worlds. Let me pull up the biggest version of this that I can get. Okay, so it should be right here. 3 Worlds is a piece by MC Escher. So there are 3 distinct worlds going on here. There's the surface of the water, where all the leaves are. There's what's underneath the water, where the fish is. And there's what's above the water, where the trees are, but we don't actually see reality here. Not one bit of it. Not one bit of reality do we see. We see only reflections in the water. So the third world that we see is not actually reality. It's only the reflection. So we see the surface of the mirror and the leaves that are upon it, what's beyond the mirror, the fish, and the reflections in the mirror. And through those, we understand reality as well as we can. The reality of the trees, the light above. But we never glimpse the truth. But by seeing all 3 of those layers, all of which are true at once, we can get a glimpse of reality. It's like if you stare at the shadows in Plato's cave for long enough, you can understand the things that must be casting those shadows to some extent. The reality of a piece of media, I think, is very much like this image from Escher of 3 worlds. There are multiple layers of analysis, and all of them can be true at the same time, and none of them is the reality of what's really behind it. Because what's really behind it is like fundamental ideals and truth, and we can't get to those ever. They're always just out of frame, just beyond our viewpoint and our view line, beyond our horizons. But we can go deep and figure out what's reflected in the water. What of us is reflected in the media that we watch. And we can skim across the surface, and skimming across the surface and just looking at the leaves is like going to a show like Mushoku TENsei and saying, it is what it literally is. This is a show about a man who did things that he hated himself for a long, long time and found himself trapped, made a decision and went to a new place, and died and went to a new place and was given a new opportunity and discovers all these things about life and the way that he was is not the way that he is anymore. That is that surface level. Those are the leaves on the pond, and that is true. But if you look into a deeper level, you see that there's this layer of metaphor and allegory of a person who dies on the inside because they're shamed by their existence, or they come to a revelation about the fact that their existence is not correct. And in that self-death, they are capable of creating and following through with all of this massive change in their perspective. And that's looking at one layer, but then that's missing that it's all together one thing, and it's complicated. So I don't mean to demean anybody who's only looking at one layer. I get it. That's the layer that you're seeing, but it doesn't mean that the other layers don't exist. There is always more to expand out on. It's like the person who wrote that I'm digging for treasure in different places. Yeah, but I'm also like digging for treasure in the sky, which is weird and crazy. And there is treasure in the sky, which is crazy. There are all these weird layers going on, and in a piece that's as dense as Mushoku TENsei has made itself to be, and it is, there are going to be layers. Now, there is media that doesn't have fucking layers at all, either because the author doesn't understand how to write them or doesn't want to. A lot of cute girls doing cute things shows don't have that many layers. They just have entertainment and cute girls doing cute things. But there's usually something more to it. accept that job to find a lost kitten. And he sort of spazzes out when he says, brrr. It's like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Do that and your worries will be at an end. Bullshit. There's no way that his worries will be at an end. We have this moment. They sit together. And you remember that moment where their shoulders touched in bed because of the different circumstance? They both sort of jumped. Now she lays on Rudy, comfortable, platonic, happy. You know what isn't present in this scene? A moment where Rudy tries to peek down her shirt or up her pants. A moment where he thinks about reaching out and groping her. It's not present. It feels almost ashamed to even bring it up, doesn't it? Rudy is not who he was. Eris is not who she was, and their relationship is no longer what it was. They have fought together. They have worked together. And battlefield rules rule. So they sit here, distinctly aware of each other's company, and Eris reveals her vulnerability, her worries. And Rudy decides to be an anchor for her, something solid. Tell her what she needs to hear. And we keep it even out of frame that there's physical contact between them, and Rudy sort of leans away from it like he doesn't know what to do. Because he doesn't, as far as I see it. This is a person opening up to you. A person who you viewed as not a person not that long ago. And now you view them as a person. With hopes and dreams and struggles and fears and stuff. Like, complete. Whoa. What a weird divergence of trust. Because Rudy doesn't trust himself in a lot of ways. And in this moment, Eris does trust him. We start to see it later that she trusts him as well. It's like when she punches Richard later, and it's like, you don't get it. Rudy has come up with a plan and everything will go okay. And that's awesome. That belief is awesome, but it might not be always founded, right? So it's a lot of responsibility for Rudy to be trusted like this. Okay, so we follow the third eye, find the thing, seek out the cave. This is as archetypical as it gets, frankly. A big dark passageway that goes down into the unknown. Yes. So we head down into the unknown to be careful. Find out that there are people here. Discover dark horrors, the underbelly. That this nice city has a horrifying underbelly of kidnapping and exploitation. That's no kiddie. And we see the guys. And we can see that there's definitely some order here. There's definitely some worry in the B person, and they're not 100% on board, and so they're somewhat redeemable to us. We set this guy up as basically a trash person who goes around kicking cages, and so we don't feel super bad about it when shit goes down. I love the little sinking. It's just, oh, that's cool. Lock them to the wall. This guy, I'll kill you. He steps up and kicks him in the stomach. Bad move. Bad move. Doesn't he know what could happen if he makes us angry? Doesn't he get the situation that he's in? Maybe not. What are you? Shing. No compunctions. And suddenly we're, again, in a different place than we were before. We were having a nice, unfriendly conversation with some bad guys. Now Richard has murdered one of them in cold blood. Whoa. So when people previously were like, hey man, you might regret being, throwing in your lot with Mr. Dead End and stuff, or even naming yourself that. That might be not a good idea. That guy's scary. Be careful who you trust completely. And this is something that reflects on me too. Careful who you trust completely, because people who have very strong ideals will do almost anything for them. We talked about this in Punpun a lot. If you say, I'm willing to do anything to protect XYZ, now you're capable of doing anything and justifying it. Ooh. Any crime is valid if they hurt a child. Well, maybe it isn't, Richard. Maybe it isn't, and that's what we get to. So this is, but he hurt a child. I don't understand. Morality is black and white and simple. I don't understand. And each of them tries to talk him down. We get this, both of them look at him like, what the holy shit? Why did you do that? Why did you kill him? The answer is so simple. Because he hurt a child. It's just like when we talked to him in the first case, right? Like all the principles that made him trustworthy, where he was like, you fell from the sky and were tired and hungry. Therefore, I made you a fire and waited until you woke up. What else would I do? It's like he kicked a child. he got his head chopped off. What do you think? How do you think this world works? It's like, this is Rudyard's perspective. And Rudy has to grapple with it. Like, whoa. And there comes to be a bigger problem, which is how do I express that this is not okay? And he realizes, as he tries to express it, that the fundamental ethical and moral logic that rules and guides Rudyard's life is not the same as his own. And so when he tries to express it, but killing is wrong, it does not track with Rudyard one bit, not even a little. You shouldn't kill. Why not? He was evil. Oh, you shouldn't exterminate a populace. Why not? They're a plague. Oh, I guess you can justify anything. You shouldn't nuke that country. Why not? They're trying to destroy the world. Anything can become justified. Why not? That should be. Can't really grapple with him. There's a reason you shouldn't kill people, and he gives it to him. He tries to get it from his perspective. We see this sequence of Rudyard trying to of Rudius trying to figure out the argument that might even convince this guy. Well, don't do it because it's going to make the Spurd seem worse. That's something that you want, but they're evil. Why would killing evil people make the Spurd's reputation worse? Everyone else will see that they are evil. This is the way that it is. It is true. It is simply true. Yeah, but what if you define evil differently than I do? What if you define evil, for example, as having enough money to eat every day? Because there are people who define evil that way. Or what if you define evil as having technology and media and running water and electricity? Because it corrupts the individual and the community, and it's no longer the same as it was. And you get people who are really, truly convinced that that is evil. And that no matter how bad their actions are, they are justified because the other is evil. And so if they get onto a plane, and they blow up that plane, or crash it into something, well, that's justified. And they will be rewarded for destroying evil. Seems like maybe pointing the finger of evil is one of the determiners of evil. This thing is irredeemable. It must be eliminated, no matter what. Seems to be maybe the most destructive mindset. And it convinces itself that it is protecting, not destroying. Because evil is trying to destroy what is good. And so that which is good must destroy what is evil. And you can frame any conflict in those terms if you'd like to. It doesn't matter who you kill, just who killed them. That's still on the Spurd thing. It's just meaning that Spurds are seen as more of killers. It's not going to work, man. I don't understand, he says. And Rudy goes, oh, shit. As he hits this wall, this revelation, which is, in Rudy's life so far, all his logic and thought has been able to convince people to see his side. Oh, I just need to talk them down. And he comes face to face with somebody who is actively trying to understand. And cannot. Maybe he doesn't have the experiential grounding. Maybe he's got too much scar tissue in his brain. Maybe he's fucking traumatized. I don't know. Maybe all of the above. But he cannot understand Rudy. And Rudy is in shock. Oh, fuck. And so Eris tries her way. You're just making Rudy's job difficult. He's trying to help you, and you're making it hard. And he goes, what do you mean? I did the right thing, and I know I did the right thing. That's why people don't like you. And that's the first thing that gets a response out of him. That attitude is why people don't like you. And he goes, huh? Rudy turns the conversation away before it devolves any further. Anyway, I'm going to put this out as a rule now. Because this is how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you can't convince somebody. Sometimes you cannot convince somebody that what they're doing is wrong. You just have to say, if you want to continue interacting with me, you have to follow this rule. Period. It's like, I've had this issue with people with physical touch. I've mentioned it before. I've got some trauma around physical touch. And so I need warning before I'm touched by somebody. And I'd prefer to be asked for consent before being touched. Because if somebody touches me without me being aware of it, it causes a jolt trauma reaction, okay? So I explained this to somebody. And this has happened multiple times. I'll explain it to somebody and they'll be like, I don't get it. I don't understand, but touch is good. It's like, yeah, for you. You know, touch doesn't cause a panic response for you. It doesn't cause your cortisol and adrenaline levels to spike instantly and cause you literal physical discomfort for a period of time. It doesn't do that to you. It does do that to me. And they go, well, I still don't understand it. And it's like, okay, fine. You don't have to understand it. You do need to follow my rule, or I will cease interacting with you. That's just the way it is. And we will not be friends. We will be something closer to enemies, because your presence is going to be uncomfortable for me unless you figure this part of things out. And it's really just that simple, is don't take this one action that causes me harm, whether you understand why or not. Simple as that. I don't need you to internalize the reasons. I don't even need you to understand the reasons. I just need you to do it. And so he puts that out. Please don't kill anyone else. Please don't do this thing. I cannot exist with you if this is the way that it is. At all. Not if you value this bird's reputation. I don't want to be afraid of you, Ruijerd. And the idea is like, it's a classic one. It's, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. If you're not evil, you have nothing to fear from me, because I am the all-seeing arbiter of what is evil. It's like, yeah, but I worry that there might be things that I do that I don't think are evil that you do think are evil. And that's a little scary. Because if I eat my meal the wrong way and you draw steel on me, or I guess bone because of your spear, if you draw steel on me because I ate my meal the wrong way or put my chopsticks into my bowl instead of on the side, we're going to have a problem. So maybe we just put the rule of let's not immediately jump to violence and let's discuss things. Really good stuff here. Because this is, as far as I can tell, an unresolvable conflict. Ruijerd cannot comprehend, and so we just need the rule. And isn't that the way that laws are sometimes? There are plenty of people in the world who are like, why do I have to respect my neighbor? My neighbor's an asshole. And it's like, well, because he has property rights and the right to all these things, and you don't really have to understand his existence or her existence or the way that they see the world or the reasons that they do what they do. You just can't walk into their house with a baseball bat and murder them because you disagree. You can't do it. You might want to. You might think that they're evil, and you can't do that. We get interrupted by, did you say spurred? Oh god, they're really spurds. And we express what they were doing. We kidnap them, and then we pretend to find it when somebody posts a lost pet job. And we're holding ourselves back one rank in the thing so that we don't have to worry about harder stuff, and so we can keep taking lost pet jobs. There are a lot of allegorical layers here. Mostly this is just exploitation, but there is a layer of doing kind of a thing that Rudy used to do, right? Well, if I were to go up in a rank and be a person who was like up in a rank in society and maybe got a part-time job, right? Maybe became not a NEET, but a Freeder who's doing some little combini jobs or whatever. Well, I would have some money and be a little bit freer and have all this capacity. But instead I stay where it's easy, where I can get things just kind of given to me. But in doing so, I'm harming the system, right? These people are harming the system by going and stealing the pets, causing the problem by going and stealing the pets, causing the problem that they then go and solve, which is interesting. And then being super complacent and essentially not being adventurers. They're the opposite of adventurers. They call themselves adventurers, but they sit and they just wait for the money to come to them without doing anything adventurous at all. So lots of lies and hypocrisy here. And some of it, I'm sure, reflects on Rudy a little bit inside his mind, where he's like, this idea of holding yourself back because it's so much easier if you don't admit the possibility of taking on responsibility. Well, yeah, if you listen only to that part of your brain that goes like, no, I can't do it. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go do the thing. If I admit to myself that I'm capable of going and doing the thing, then I'll have to actually go and do it. There's something to that is an echo between these people's lives and Rudy's life. And, of course, Ruijerd goes, I see. Villains. I knew it. I understand completely. And he's just like, well, they die now. I understand their process is evil. I have judged it as such. I will execute them. It's like, whoa, Ruijerd. Didn't I just say something about not killing people? Think. And he's only able to convince him that he's got a plan. And he does. Ruijerd cannot compute. Why would we work with the enemy? Because maybe the enemy is not evil. Maybe we can get something out of this. Maybe we can fix them too. And I think that's what's going to happen in Rudius's game plan here. I think that these two will somehow be mildly redeemed. And so he has to be straightforward with Ruijerd. And this is a real coming to a head, right? Ruijerd is probably fully capable of killing both of them without a sweat, if he decides to. Rudius believes that he will not, because Ruijerd is dedicated to protecting children beyond all things. So he thinks he's safe here, but he doesn't know. We just learned that Ruijerd is unpredictable and murderous. He can't convince him, so he just tells him, please be quiet. I really need you to not mess this up right now. And Ruijerd, and his voice actor, does this moment excellently. Huh? You what? He explains it to him as best as he can. This will get us to what we need. And he's furious. Impossible! We don't work with villains. I will not work with villains. And Eris goes off and starts punching him. Don't you get it? Why are you complaining? He's doing all this for us. He's finally swayed by these emotions to some extent. What's so bad about kidnapping a few animals anyway? Well, it's not that. It's the principle. They did something evil, and all evil is evil. It's all black or it's white. They also kicked a child, and that's far worse. And she goes, what the fuck do you mean? There's a double standard there. I kick people all the time. Didn't you do bad things long ago? And doesn't that ring true? You set out in the world to destroy the things that you hate most about yourself. You find yourself disgusted most by the things that reflect poorly upon you. You find yourself hating the people for the elements of their personalities and their being that reflects on your own flaws, instabilities, and failures. It echoes a lot of my sentiments in the previous video where I talked about people finding disgust in certain elements of this story, and I think that a lot of that is rooted in seeing the self and parts of the self that they might be disgusted in, or disgusted by, in elements of this story. So Ruijerd sees evil, and some part of him has been labeled with that brush too, and he hates it so very much. So much that he will kill it whenever he sees it, rather than look upon it and have to evaluate. At least that's my sight. That's how I see it. Just leave it to Rudy. We can manage on our own. He grits his fucking teeth. I'm a spurred warrior. I never walk away from my resolutions. And his resolution was, I will see you home no matter what. And this means not killing people, because he cannot see you home if he does not follow the rule. It's kind of like, you can't be a part of our group unless you follow the rules of behavior. Or kind of like, you can't be a member of society unless you follow some of the basics. You don't just go around killing people because you think they're evil. They have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you can't stop them from doing that. Similarly, you can't exploit people the way that the others are doing, but you can't punish people that you see exploiting people with death. If you can follow some of those simple rules, you can be part of our group, and we can move forward, and we can reach your goals about the Spurred. And wouldn't that be nice for everybody involved? And so Ruijerd finally lets up. We have this scene of the setup for the swap, and this guy being all goofy. That ends our damned episode. Leading into the next one. I don't know what the next one is. That's this one, the value of life in the first job. I don't know what next episode will be, but I'm excited to find out. Yeah! All right, I'm going to go edit Mushoku TENsei and upload this to you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know how I did. I know that it's like a mix and match. There's some of the rambliness and some of the more concise stuff, and we're somewhere in the middle. I'm probably going to upload this one as one full video because it's relatively not as long as the other ones, but we'll see. Thanks so much for watching, and also all of it is somewhat relevant content, so yeah. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next week for more Mushoku TENsei, and to see what this job we pull off ends up being like. See you there. Thanks. Support me on the Patreon. Check that out. There's some new stuff going on there that could be very cool and you might be very interested in. Give it a look-see. And thank you kindly. See you next week. Peace.